tried to call her and now I just sent her a text.
Dan Fallon, and I'll be running this evening's work session and meeting in the absence of Mayor Hunter Mortensen and Mayor Pro Tem Jesse Burley. So it's 4 right now. We're going to get going, and I want to welcome everyone to today's work session meeting of Frisco Town Council. And we're going to call this July 13th work session of the Frisco Town Council to order. Just
This. To hear yourself again.
The echo chamber. Very odd.
Let me try this.
All right. And we'll ask the clerk to take the roll right now, please.
Mortensen, absent. Aronson. Burley. Absent. Fallon.
Here.
Held.
Here.
Lincoln. Absent. Sherburne. Thank you.
And at this time, we would ask if there's anybody, staff or anybody on council that has any revisions to today's agenda.
I'm so sorry.
All you have to do is show up. I know.
Try it this way.
I would like to note for the record that if there's nothing, I'm not hearing anything. I would add that for the record, that we have added to tonight's agenda, the contract for the new town manager. That's been added as the first agenda item of new business. It was published on Friday. It's been on the town website. And it appears no motion is necessary since this has been published. Okay, is there a motion to approve the agenda with the additions? Approve contract for the new town manager. The addition of the contract's been added and moved. Is there a second?
I just want to, you're just adding the agenda item, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I second that.
So Councilmember Andy Held moved to approve the agenda and was seconded by Andrew Aronson. And Deb, if you could take the roll.
Mortensen, absent. Aronson.
Yes.
Burley, absent. Fallon.
Yes.
Held.
Yes.
Lincoln, absent. Sherburne. Thank you.
And the motion is carried. We'll move forward now into the first agenda item on the work session. And that is the Adventure Park up the Peninsula Recreation Area, the building update. And I think Katie is here to do that for staff. And Katie, what is yours?
Sorry. Thanks for having us. It's very exciting. This is my first in-person meeting in so long, so it's a little weird. So kind of to recap where we left this off in May, I think the last time we met to review the first round of drawings. Since that discussion, we've had some good meetings with some of you here. We've had good meetings internally as a team and with the design team, and we've really looked at the layout of this building, the function of this building, and how it will be used today and into the future. And so today we're going to present our next round of design and planning for this building, particularly at the PRA. Mr. McDonald and his team here are going to kind of go through site plans, layouts, and those activities, and we look forward to any discussion regarding this building and the future of the building. So we look forward to talking about it a little bit more. I think Megan's gonna go first. I'm also a little awkward at being in person again. I wasn't sure if I could stay seated or if I should stand. So I chose to stand. I wanted to start off just by thanking council members for your time today. We really appreciate all the feedback that we heard last time. And we feel we have a lot to share with you since then. What we did is we kind of took a step back, took a good relationship at the buildings and the space between the buildings and how they all function together. Because we realized we can't zero in on this new building without talking a little bit more about what functions are served in the Nordic Center and the Day Lodge. So that's some of the things I'm going to be reviewing. I'm with Norris Design. My name is Megan Teston, and I'm part of the team here with Bob McDonald from OLC. And Bob will talk more about the architecture, but I'm just going to try to address some of the overall site issues. I believe, do I share the screen from here?
You ready to? Yes.
I think so. Here we go. Okay. Looks like everyone can see that. This was also included in your package. But again, like I said, we're just going to talk about the relationships of the buildings and the relationships between the buildings. When we started to look at this in more detail, we realized that the buildings function very differently in the summer than in the winter. So what I'm going to present today are an overlay of summer uses, and then we'll move on to an overlay of winter uses. With that said, we did a high level kind of overview of what is being housed currently in the Day Lodge and what would then be housed in this, what we're calling the slope side hall. And then also what would be housed in the Nordic Center. So with that said, we're assuming that an elevator and an expanded food and beverage would be in addition to the Day Lodge. That would kind of help with a function and make the basement storage area better there. So weddings, rentals, conferences, retail, food and beverage, and guest service offices is what would be hosted out of the Day Lodge. And then the slope side hall would take over Fun Club. It would also have 3 community rooms. There would be office space and storage there, as well as additional restrooms and a changing space. And then over across the street at the Nordic Center would be additional youth camp space as well. We did have, as you're looking at the circulation between the buildings, we have a traffic engineer on our team. We had them come out to the site and we had them analyze some of this traffic circulation patterns, and he recommended an access point directly across from the existing access point just to the east of the Nordic Center, where the large parking lot is and kind of the ball fields on the other side, or the sleigh rides in the winter. So we would have an emergency access to the building, to Slopeside Hall on that side. And in the summer, there'd also be some type of drop-off area. One of the big changes you'll see here is that we did actually remove the tubing storage from Slopeside Hall. The tubing storage can be housed more efficiently in a nicely fenced and screened area off to the side, something that's aesthetically pleasing, but would also still house the tube storage. So that's kind of the goal, is to get that out of this building and let this building address the community more and Fun Club and rental space. Now, the other thing I really wanted to focus on is sort of this connection between Slopeside Hall and the Day Lodge. There's a really nice synergy that we can create in terms of a gathering space in these areas, and just to really look at how that space can function for the Day Lodge or for Slopeside Hall or for really large events, both of them. So it's something that we want to feel comfortable at all times of the year. I'm going to switch to the winter one. So in the winter, the Nordic Center, of course, will still house Nordic programming. And in the winter, all the tubing and the ski hill rental areas and everything that kind of goes with that will be functioning out of the Day Lodge. Currently, when people, especially tubers, come to the Day Lodge, they filter through, they go to the yurt, which you'll see is slightly relocated here. They'll pick up their tube and they'll head over to the east or uphill towards the magic carpet, which you'll see just on the tail end of it, just on the very far side of the screen. So that will still stay the same, just kind of that circulation pattern of coming through the Day Lodge to the yurt to the tubing hill. What we think would be really impressive in the winter would be to have more community space for rent. And for additional meetings with the 3 rooms, they're kind of expandable. I'll let Bob get into that a little bit more. And then in the winter, we feel that the access would be simply emergency access as required by the fire department. We did have a meeting specifically with Kim McDonald to discuss this and to review that this access would work for him. So he is aware of it and he is in favor of it. And just in terms of the site design, we also want to make sure that we have a safe pedestrian connection between the Nordic Center and the new building spaces. The other thing I wanted to just touch on really quick for our knowledge is we understand that the Village Center, which is what we were calling it before, was probably not the most appropriate name. We went through a small naming exercise, something just really high level, to come up with a few different names. And what we've decided to go with for right now is Slopeside Hall. We feel that the hall has the community feel that we wanted, and Slopeside does kind of describe its location at the toe of the tubing and skiing hill. So that is what I'm going to share, and I will let Bob get into more details with the architecture.
Thanks, Megan. Yeah, I'm Bob McDonald with OLC Architects, and so we're the architect of record on the project. I'm going to, let's see, can I escape? Yeah, okay. And then I'll just open up the drive. There we go. And I think it's this one. Okay, there we go. All right, and then how did you get that presentation? Control. Display. How did you find that? Sorry. Not used to.
Okay.
Just about
Well,
blowing
yeah,
it up, we
we're
can
gonna
see.
let that go.
All right, sorry about that. At least close that part. Okay, so this is just the architectural site plan that is similar to what Megan just showed you very diagrammatically. And if I can, these, I want to remind everyone too that this is still our conceptual design. So we're going to be doing a lot of study of the site and the circulation and figuring out exactly how wide some of these driveways are and what the surfacing will be and stuff like that. So this is still very high level. You can see we've got the access here, a line that Megan was talking about, mainly for emergency access with the turnaround here. And one of the comments that we heard the last time we met with you was, well, it seems like you're just dropping people off at the backside of the building and not really having an identified place to go. And so we've redesigned this building quite a bit in response to that comment, as well as some of the other comments that were made about the building design itself. So I'm going to advance now to the first floor plan of the building. So recognizing that we do have this drop off here that would be facing roughly east or southeast, and creating another entry or access into the building on that corner, and then creating this interior connection out to this other, which would still be the main entry that's off of the central plaza. It gave us a lot of advantages in terms of just, people circulating, getting to the building and into their destination. Another thing it afforded us was just an ability for staff to access the building through a door that does not take them right through the main lobby. They're coming in and out of this building to take their breaks and stuff like that. So giving them a quick access in here, and then a stairwell that goes quickly upstairs to the break room. was another advantage. But you can see the programmatic elements on this level are mainly these three large community classrooms. And each is sized for approximately 20 to 25 students. So the entire capacity here would be about 70 to 75 students. Katie, I think the numbers were something like you're at 60 or 65 now. And so, but you've got a wait list.
So Fun Club right now is at 50 kids per day.
Okay.
And that is a state license program. So those need to meet certain requirements. There's an additional 25 kids that attend in additional camps that are not state licensed and don't need to meet those square footage requirements. But we do have some fairly substantial wait lists for all camps, but specifically the Fun Club. And so with the ability for future growth, going to that 75 per kids would be an adequate number, we feel at this time.
Yeah. So that's why we've sized these appropriately for that. We're also having a small kitchen here that has access to 2 of the rooms. So these could be rented out as well for, various functions that the public might want to host. We've got 2 offices on this level for staff to run the Fun Club and things like that. We've got the required restrooms on this level, as well as some storage, mechanical janitor's closets, things like that. And so the majority of the office and admin spaces will be up on the 2nd floor. So I'll just take you upstairs real quickly. So here's that stairwell that I pointed out before, where staff could quickly come in and come up this stair, walk through sort of a small vestibule type area with some lockers in it. And then also have a changing and restroom here on this level. Then we've got 5 offices on this upper level as well to house the recreation staff, and 1 office in this corner with a good view of the Nordic Center to help control and visibility of that, as well as the break room, and then just some workstations, cubicles and things like that, a central work area. And then we've also got elevator, so that there's accessible access up and down. So I think that this concept responds in a number of different ways to the comments that we heard the last time. We've got a more compact kind of footprint. It's more efficient. We got rid of some of the, extra things like balconies and like that. The exterior design, if you remember from our last presentation, it will be similar in character. We have not updated those 3Ds quite yet, but with the pitched roofs and different materials that are going to meet the design guidelines of the town, and the sustainability requirements of the code as well. So I think that about does it as far as the design presentation. So I think we can open it up for questions, comments, wherever you'd like to take it.
Well, thanks very much for that. It's quite a substantial transformation. But yeah, open it up for council discussions.
First of all, thank you. It's looking nice. I've got just a couple comments of layout stuff, and for the layout, I love this. I feel like it's a work in progress for many into a cohesive land plan for the entire sort of base village, if you will. And I'm just wondering from your perspective, do you think that, what do you think? I mean, I don't have any critique
Of the bubbles.
right. I mean, together, but from a design perspective, how would you tie it all together? I mean, is it signage? Is environmental? I feel like that. buildings thrown onto the PRA. And so it's those fine details that can really make a huge difference. So I love your all's perspective on that. And then kind of related, where's the arrival point and how do you tell people, okay, you're here? And where is here? Is it at the hall? Is it at the lodge? Is it, where do you see that here being that destination point? And then I just had a couple really small questions about Slopeside Hall. Are those walls movable? How they did have that at the
Yeah,
For the classrooms.
yeah, so that it could open up into one big hall.
exactly. Sorry, I
They
didn't
are
mention that.
movable? Oh,
Yes.
good. Okay. And then I think this is covered in with the cubicles and stuff, but I just had a note. I really like private offices. I think that's great. Maybe one or two could be a little larger, so two people could share an office, but I don't need to get into those details, but just a thought there. It looks like a good amount of diverse space and such a huge improvement, and that's great. So really just I love your feedback on the layout stuff.
There you go.
I
Megan.
would love to. I think you hit on the head kind of what gets me most excited about this plan and what we can do with it. I will tell you, obviously, what you're looking at right now with Bubbles is not the final vision and plan. However, we didn't want to get too far down one path without an understanding of, is this the right program? And have we kind of at this diagram, why is that word hard for me right now? Diagrammatic level, laid this out appropriately. I do think that when we create and really work on what I'm going to call the visual vernacular of the PRA, it's going to come together. We need to not only plan the space to be flexible, so there's going to be some really fun space planning, but we need to choose the materials really carefully to speak to Frisco and to speak to what's already at the Day Lodge. The Nordic Center and the Day Lodge have really strong characters, but also really different characters. I do think that we can tie that together with the addition of the Slopeside Hall, the materials for the building, but also the materials of that space. One of the things I want to be cognitive of is that we're not putting City Plaza in between two buildings in the middle of a very green space. So when we get to the design level, I want to make sure that there is a lot of flexible space that goes between hardscape and softscape, but also usable. I want this area to be well used and to be able to host events of different sizes. So one of the things we started to look at in the final placement of Slopeside Hall versus the Day Lodge was, is there enough room that if we ever wanted to expand Slopeside Hall, we would be able to and not have the buildings feel too close together? But B, can we create and account for different tents? A lot of the events that we do now currently use the 10 by 10 tents and multiple ones. And we always have to think about fire access when we're event planning, but also weddings and other events that we might host more of that we don't currently host might host more larger tents. So we're really looking at that from a lot of different angles. I also think our final treatment of the streetscape on Recreation Way is going to add a lot of those visual cues as to how you arrived. And I'm not going to lie, I think that overall signage is incredibly important. That's not necessarily the scope right now with this building, but I think it's incredibly important to that sense of you are here. And the hard part about that is here for visitors and here for, how the Slopeside Hall, how we picture that being, yes, it will be open for events, but it's also going to be where a lot of locals go more than the Day Lodge. So we're kind of getting that a little bit figured out, and it changes by season. So there is some hard questions there with the you are here, but I think we need to make it really clear to visitors that are coming specifically for tubing in the winter, especially, that the Day Lodge is where they go. And I think a lot of that is through signage, but I think it will be also through how we treat that vehicular access, which is why we're calling it the emergency access. That's not something we're going to overly highlight necessarily.
It might, yeah, and I might just add in that we've talked in meetings about that sense of arrival and that sense of place, and having those sort of iconic, visual destinations like some sort of outdoor sculpture or something that it's sort of that Instagram moment that it'll be used year round, and and it will become sort of a focal point on the site. So we'd love to do something like that.
Yeah, and I'd also love to get into that pedestrian connection too. I think if we can draw visual attention to that, it will be much safer for people. So there's a lot of cues that people use almost subconsciously when you're moving through a space. So it's kind of the next, it's the fun level. It's the next one.
Yeah, go figure, I got some thoughts. So you mentioned the elevator in the day lodge.
Yes.
Are you also putting acoustics and kitchen upgrades in the project?
So I believe kitchen was discussed and we're currently looking into sound panels for next year's budget.
Okay,
So that would be a different scope of work.
but is the kitchen, making the kitchen, not as a cooking kitchen, but as a facility caterer's kitchen? Is that in the scope that we're gonna have? Because I want to make sure that the project, when it's done, is done. Not that
Sure.
it's done, and then the following year, we have to address the other upgrades that for some reason we didn't do when we did the project.
The kitchen expansion, the elevator are not currently included in this scope. So those in the day lodge. So we have not included that with the scope of work that we're doing with Bob and his team at this point in time. Not to say we can't add it, but it's kind of, as this has evolved, right? This is what we need to do eventually to the day lodge. This is the new building we're proposing. We could add it in, so it does become one complete project.
My request would be, if you're going to talk about an elevator, talk about everything you need in that building so that we can bring it up to whatever level of functionality it needs to be a quality catering facility. And from everybody I've heard, that includes a kitchen that's functional. I've talked, honestly, I think we either need to change the name of the building or change the name of the hill. And you can do either.
Yeah.
But slopes, the only thing we're missing with the name Slopeside Building is a slope, unless we market ourselves as having a tubing slope or some way or another, making that word a part of the project. We can call it Tubers Hill. I don't know, but I still have that disconnect on lacking a slope. Did you find out the capacity of the buildings for, like, how big of a wedding can we hold in Slopeside Hall? I don't have a sense of how big these 3 rooms are.
Right. I think seating wise for banquets and things like that, you could probably seat about 100, 120.
Okay.
Probably in all 3, if you opened them up.
About the same as what we can do in the day lodge?
But currently the day lodge capacity sets at 120. If you're looking realistically at a seated event, you're looking at more of 80.
Otherwise it gets cozy. And how big are each of those rooms then, square footage?
I don't have those numbers on.
Give or
hang on.
take.
Give me just I can get back to that drawing. I think we were shooting for about, I don't know, 6. Shoot, I need to look at the drawing. I don't want to
I'm
misquote.
just
how big
kind of
they
for
are.
reference. I don't know how big
Yeah.
this room is, but I'm in looking at those 3 rooms and this room, I'm thinking this is about the size of each of the 3 rooms.
That's right. Yeah.
Am I in the right hemisphere?
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
Bob,
That's a
all
good
the ones that
estimate.
you provided, I think you've got one at 890, 790, and 640.
Yeah.
Sound about right?
Yep.
For each of the
That's good, yeah.
smallest one at 640, the largest one 890.
Just confirm the pedestrian connection. That's just a crosswalk, right?
Well,
Yeah, I mean, it kind of gets into what I was starting to hint at in the next level. I would love to see some kind of vertical indication for drivers to understand that it is a pedestrian connection. So more than just the crosswalk sign, which is out there, I think we can do something to enhance that and make it just a little more obvious of a crosswalk.
And then I love the community gathering space, but have concerns, one with snow removal. We can make it pretty with art and benches, but then how do we get the snow off of it in the winter? So I just hope there's conversations going on about functionality as opposed to, but in addition to design. Because again, one of the things hopefully in the budget is that space, because I don't think any of us want to come back and have the building be built, and then it's just this big concrete thing that looks like we're gonna do something with it later, but who knows if we'll ever get around to it. So let's pretend like that is a true part of the project to finish when we do the building. It's 1/7 of the crew. 1/4 of tonight, 1/7 of the total.
Sure, I'll jump in. Thank you. Definitely a huge difference from what it was. I appreciate that. Like, I feel like in the process, we often talk about changes and things, and often the plan comes back pretty similar to what it was, right? And I think you guys have definitely embodied a lot of the stuff we brought up. I appreciate that. My few things was that back door with the hallway. I like the idea of the hallway or straight through the front. You can see the front of the building. I think you could easily make that back vestibule like the front vestibule, in which case the double doors and just a little bigger, a little more inviting than just a single, hotel back door kind of thing. That would be an easy way to just sort of say, you're going in here, and then it leads you straight down the hallway to the lobby. Not sure, is there going to be some sort of welcoming desk or anything in this area, or is that just for the day lodge? I don't know where that fell in, if that falls in.
Currently, it's just an open space is
Right.
what it is at this point in time. We don't have someone who is manning a space right now. But it's open enough and flexible enough that you could add in that space as needed.
Theoretically, they're going to the day lodge and they're getting whatever they need taken care of there.
Yeah.
This is right.
Yeah,
Just more
and
for
the
the
thought of
extra people
having,
in the
there's
office.
those 2 offices right there on the first level, that they would have a window or something. So at least there's visual kind of control over anybody who comes in that door, may be lost and need assistance. Yeah.
That's just in how this building is going to operate. Along the lines of what Andy's talking about, craft services. I think it would be great to actually provide something down there for our patrons, coffee shop or something like that. This might be a place for that. And I know that's extra on top of things, but in the similar vein of, instead of building something and then saying, boy, it would have been nice to put in a coffee shop. Perhaps we could venture down that road. Maybe that would be small, and maybe it would be tied in with this kitchen that you got here or something. That I don't know. I like the classrooms with the movable walls. I think that will be a great addition. I like you pared down the whole upstairs to be, tighter version, as Andy brought up last time. Just, who are we putting up there? Cubicles will end up being some specific people's cubicles, so it is nice to have your own space, without being subjected to everyone else. And then the last thing I think was really just the getting back to the roof pitches before we end up designing something to look like an old building on site or old buildings. We should still keep a forward-thinking, modern aesthetic, and try to avoid ice dams and any of those things on the front side. Not on the front side of the building, but on the front side of designing this thing.
Right.
I would just love to see more modern architecture in everything we do. I think we're pretty stuck on, combining materials, and it looks like the 90s. Personally, that was my own personal thing. I think that's about it for me.
Okay. Great.
Cool.
One thing,
Please.
one thought that I had on that kind of backside entry we were specifically trying to keep it sort of small and unassuming so that we didn't get a lot of winter traffic of tubing patrons trying to drive
Building.
down that side and drop people off, which is, outside of the control point. So we're kind of, I don't know, it's sort of a balance that we need to make it look like an entry, but not so much like an entry that we have too many people coming in there.
Sure,
so-
and that might have to be taken care of by signage and whatnot, just as far as
Exactly,
everybody
yeah.
flowing.
And we
off the hill,
talked about
because
that, maybe,
I think they would end up there anyway.
yeah,
'cause
well,
gonna
and
be
that's
the
what we talked
first-
about, some,
First stop, just coming down.
yeah.
Is this where I'm supposed to be?
Yeah, we
Uh,
talked about some temporary barricades out there. So they
Directing
could,
people
yeah.
and that sort of thing. Sure.
and, yeah, so
Yeah. Okay,
thinking about that stuff.
that's fine. I'm not gonna like poo-poo the whole project if it comes back and change that thing. Don't worry about that. I just want to make it a better overall, thing. I don't want to, throw a wrench into the works. Thank you.
Thanks.
I think, I would echo most of the same comments. I've kind of focused a little bit or curious a little bit about process as, we were really focused on that slope side hall building uniquely in terms of its function. And as you kind of integrated that function back into the function of those three buildings in that public space, it kind of broadens the scope of the project overall in terms of what the price tag might be, because I agree with comments we've heard already is, the timetable for bringing this all up, I think probably has to be pretty complimentary. So that things at the Day Lodge can certainly support what goes on over there next door, and it all kind of happens at the same, if it happens at the same time, or if it happens sequentially, get that building up, and then we come back the next year to the Day Lodge. So understanding the total scope of the budget to get all that done and implement some of those other attributes of the public space and the signage and things like that, kind of bringing that back together from a phasing perspective to really understand, okay, how's it going to happen? Is it, 1 to 3 years? What are the expectations? I agree and kind of want to understand a little bit more about the expanded kitchen at the Day Lodge and understand what exactly it's supposed to support. I like the idea of having a cafe out there somewhere to support that Nordic operation. So people, when they're done, have a place to walk. Day Lodge seems to be the appropriate place to do that for now. It's really laid out very well for that, with the porticos, with the very comfortable, great room. And it wouldn't take too much to kind of create a better kitchen, one that's more functional in terms of delivering that kind of a menu to get it out. And that would also support caterings, typically, which don't evolve on site. Typically, those are holding stations, not creation stations, right? So, I'm just kind of curious, and how we're going to add that to the next phase, understanding how that's going to be implemented and the costs associated with that. Want to kind of really get a sense of storage wise with that elevator. What are we going to facilitate down there for storage? What that's going to look like? I know there's plenty of stuff to go down there. Just kind of want to get a sense for both levels of utilization there in that space. And then how does this affect the Nordic Center operation in terms of traffic flow to the Nordic Center? So does it displace anything and does it serve, is this that staging area for those Nordic events? Summit Nordic Ski Team, the drop room for the kids when they have those events, the little Vikings, will they come out of there and then cross the street? So how does that help, create, how does that help dissipate that bottleneck that's over there at the Nordic Center? Getting some of the staff out of there. I'd like to get a sense of that. Is it noticeably improved? Will it be just something that only the staff really can tell the difference? Or will the skiing public really kind of notice a difference? Is that something you can speak to right now, or?
Yeah, definitely so. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think the building is designed to complement every single piece of the operation that we have out there. So you're exactly right. Those classrooms can definitely be utilized for the Little Vikings program. They can be utilized for the Summit Nordic Ski Club. It is across the street, of course, but doesn't mean it's not right there. It's just they don't have spaces. They don't have spaces to come in, to change, to keep their stuff, anything like that. So that building can easily serve in that capacity. They're also always looking for meeting spaces, places to be able to just hang out, have a group meeting, have a team meeting. That's what this new building would also be able to help with. It does alleviate some of the pressure with the staff as well, like you just said. So the Nordic and Trails Manager would actually have an office in this new building as well, overseeing what's happening over at the Nordic Center also. So still the ability to quickly get over there should need be, but also then to oversee everything that is happening. So it's it complements everything in every way. In terms of races, we've done races on both sides of the street, right? We've hosted them and had them over at the Nordic Center entirely, where they take off and they go right from there. We've also had them over on the Tubing Hill side of things. So the options are still there to host whatever type of race we want to host or need to host. It gives us more space though for all those staging opportunities as well. In terms of I don't know, downstairs in that basement, we can store a ton of stuff. I mean, there is everything that you've got right now, right? All that, the furniture, the signage, you name it, everything is down there. So it will continue to serve as a storage space. I think that we're always looking for storage areas. And the kitchen, like you said, yes, I don't think it takes a lot necessarily with the kitchen at the Day Lodge to beef that up, but it does, as you all know, it needs some love. It just, in order to have it function more as a working cafe, it's just, you get in there and it is tight and it's awkward, and it was never designed for really what it's being used for now.
And is that, with the Tubing Hill ongoing right now, do you have F&B functions out of there whenever the Tubing Hill's open right now? So you always have something going on there already, right? Okay. So yeah, looking at that with the concessionaire side to do that remodel to get that stuff out. That's it for me, really just trying to kind of, get that extra number on top of the Slopeside Hall number and understanding the best phasing for how that's all going to come together in a timeline.
This also includes planning commission's input, does it? Thank you.
Yeah, that would be one of our next steps. I mean, if you guys are comfortable with this, what we would do is we'd have an initial meeting with the DRC, which includes fire, which we've actually already met with, but it also includes Xcel Energy and just kind of all the different disciplines that we know we're going to need input from in the building process. And then that gives us what we'd go to them with, like a schematic plan. And then from there, we'll have some time to develop what we would consider like the sketch plan submittal for planning commission and go through the planning commission process as well. So
Have they looked at this at all at this point or no?
not yet.
Not yet. I want to say for the record, I would like them to see it on the early side before sketch plan. So you can get input from them as our appointed panel of experts. Thank you.
Anything else? Wanna add on? I think that's it. You guys have anything to add? Anything to follow up on? Any questions for us?
Can you give a kind of a projected timeline for this? Where are we going from here?
Well, I think originally we were going to try to wrap up the scope, which was an 80% construction document package and cost estimate kind of thing by September. With this kind of stepping back and redesigning, we probably push that out a month to October. So that's what I'm thinking is more like that mid to late October timeframe for 80% CDs.
And then?
And then
Is
funding
can
and
just sort of talk us through from now till the shovel goes in the ground. What has to happen? What are our decision points?
yeah. So the with that 80% package, we'll have a good idea of the funding that's required. And so then it becomes, your tasks to raise money for and identify the funds, right?
That might be a budget question then for next time.
Yeah, so that'll be, this fall, you have to do that. And then I would say we can roll into the final construction documents and bid package and things like that through the end of the year. Hopefully try to meet a groundbreaking, say, next spring of some kind. That'd be the earliest that
Right,
we could
okay,
probably do
good.
it. Yeah.
So yeah, so we'll see this again after. So I guess the question that's the question then. So when do we see this again? And at what stage?
So once again, we're kind of back to process, and what does
Yeah.
that process look like? I think there's probably a little confusion there. Our goal was actually, as Megan had said, take it to DRC within the next couple of weeks.
Right.
After that, take it to planning commission. After it goes to planning commission, it would come back to you.
All right, so-
Sound, we on track?
right.
Okay.
Just wondered.
Okay,
And
just make sure.
would that be, when will we see the additional scope of the Day Lodge renovation in terms of the complementary use? Will that be part of that?
I think I have to get with Bob here too and get an additional kind of estimate on what
Okay.
that scope is, the cost associated with that, because like we said, it's not part of it. It's just, we know that's what we want in there, but we have not budgeted for that piece of it. So we have to come back and talk through that.
Thanks.
Hey,
Thanks.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. Excited to come see you guys again on this one.
The next one is scheduled for about 45 minutes. Does anybody want to make a quick break before we get on to the next one? Are you ready to get rolling? Just keep rolling. Second agenda item on the work session is the childcare discussion. And we'll open that right now. I think Diane McBride, our acting town manager, will introduce the report and take it from there.
Got it. Thank you, Councilmember Fallon, council members. This is both myself and Bonnie will be tackling this one today. The last time this discussion was in front of you was in early January. So I know we're going back for a little bit here. Since that time, we have looked at a couple different governmental agencies and what they do in terms of childcare. So we did look quite a bit into the city of Aspen. Bonnie and I have had some nice conversations with them. And then we also got some updated numbers from the town of Breckenridge as well. And you'll see all that is within your packet here. There is, in terms of the support that the town of Frisco has traditionally given to Summit County Preschool is about $65,000 per year. And that is then utilized by the preschool for, it does for financial, a variety of different things that they want to do with it that they've outlined. There are about 71 children who attend Summit County Preschool from 65 families. And of those 65 families, a total of 41 of them either live or work in Frisco itself. We do have some questions in this report. We'll get to those here in just a little bit that we just are looking for some answers from you. If we need to provide more information about this, we're happy to look for more information. We want to know exactly kind of where you want to go with some of this information. There is some additional follow-up here. Early childhood options within the county itself is also continuously looking at childcare, also trying to understand the needs or the issues that we've got with wages, the turnover of staff. Of course, this all then also falls with the housing crisis that we have as well. They are working on some surveying that they are doing. They are collecting more data and are presenting all this information to the county as well in August. So everyone is talking about childcare at this point in time. In your report, we also broke down a few more numbers from the preschool. So you see some accurate numbers in terms of what the tuition rates are, in terms of as well, how many kids are on the wait list. There are, as of February, there were 245 kids on the wait list for Summit County Preschool. Jennifer, I believe, is also on the line, the new director for Summit County Preschool, listening into this conversation. And she has indicated that that number should not be of any surprise, has actually gone up. So people are looking to try and get many of these spots. We've got information there in terms of what the turnover is, the starting salaries, what their operating budgets are, and then tuition at the preschool is anticipated, as you'll see here as well, to go up. It did go up January 1st. It will go up September 1st and again next year as well. So they are also trying to address the issue that they've got in terms of the covering all their costs and trying to figure out the true cost of childcare, and they're raising fees in accordance to make that happen. The questions that we do have for you tonight, obviously a discussion to have at this point in time. Does council desire to continue to provide financial assistance for Frisco families for childcare? We have defined that as infant through preschool care. I know a lot of times when we talk about childcare, there's programs that run for after school programs and such, but this is very specific to that childcare for the infant all the way until preschool, until they go to kindergarten. If yes, does the council desire to keep the funding at 65,000? Would you choose to change that in some way? That can all become part of the budget discussion that we will, of course, that will lead itself into this here in a few weeks at this point in time as well. And are there other criteria you'd like to see associated with this? I think there's many questions that are out there. I don't know if the information we've provided you has helped in terms of giving you more information about some things. I know we tried to get as much information as possible to hopefully lend itself to a good discussion. And with that, I don't know, Bonnie, do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
I think you covered it. I'm ready for discussion. If any questions?
Thanks very much. Appreciate the deep dive into, this is a pretty good picture of what's going on. So we'll open up to you guys, whoever wants to jump in.
I got just a couple questions. So this was great. Thank you. Kind of just bringing back a lot more information to what I think is second only to housing and reasons people can't live here, and is probably the second topic behind housing to every community, every jurisdiction, every family in our community as to the problems we need to solve. This one comes in second, but it's a big second. One of the thoughts is, I mean, and it's just, you know, this is a community topic. So I sort of sense we need to be coordinating. It's good to see what Aspen does. It's good to see what Breck does, but this is our community needs to be coordinating. I don't know if early childhood, who I don't know anything more than what I read in the paper somewhere or another. They just got $2.4 million to throw at this problem in ways that I don't know, but certainly should be part of our conversation. Strong futures, federal stimulus. There's money coming in from every direction on this problem. So I don't look at it as our conversation should be really just what is Frisco willing to spend on this problem. It's how do we solve this problem for our residents, and that's a more difficult conversation. So the collaboration among the other organizations is critical to solving this, or helping solve the problem. I don't think we'll ever solve it. Do teachers really make only $12.50 an hour? Are they really still? I mean, considering the community and what you can make Washington or any other position, are they still getting people at that?
The information that we have from Summit County Preschool still indicated that the starting salary, the basic starting salary, was still at $12.50 per hour. Correct.
Okay, let's fix that. Yeah, that might be an issue.
I don't know if Jennifer is on the line. I'll check and see.
Who can you at least just conceptually? I knew who used to be there. I knew that the executive director left. I didn't know who the new person is.
Yeah, I'm seeing if she's on the, yeah, Jennifer Tarrant. Yep.
Well, I'll start with welcome. Good luck. We're here to help.
Hi there.
Yeah, just a moment. We will unmute her and she can also introduce herself here as well.
Well, then I mean, as long as she's listening, that's, you know, I'd love to hear from her and welcome her. But you know, so a big thing for me is convening a community collaboration beyond just us. I think there's a conversation to be had. I don't have an opinion on it at the moment, but are we supporting Frisco residents or Frisco employees or both? Like I said, I think that's a conversation. I don't have an answer to it, but it's a conversation. Also, open to the conversation, but I prefer the scholarship model to the grants to the school model, because we want to help the people who need the help. But if you're a full pay, if we give 65 or 100,000 to the school, that's being proportionally distributed to the full pay students and to those in need, as opposed to a scholarship system, which really just helps those who need it the most. There was something in here about it in-home, and I would hope, I don't know details, hope we can encourage in-home daycare, because capacity is as big of an issue as affordability, if not a bigger issue, because we can give it away for free and we still have half of our population unable to get their kids into daycare. So how do we increase capacity? And a question, is the wait list real in that? Because I didn't raise my kids here, do people put their kids on 5 wait lists so that the minute that kid gets a slot at any of the preschools, that just frees up technically 5 wait list spots?
I can only speak from my experience having done this, and the answer was yes. Because you want to just, but I would turn to, we've all been there. Yeah.
So the magnitude of the wait list, we don't have to go out and do a deep dive study on it, but the magnitude of the wait list can at least be adjusted in our own minds as not quite to that level because we've got one kid on multiple lists. Okay, that's really helpful. So, okay. That's Ryan. Again, thanks. And what was her name? Jennifer?
Jennifer, yeah, I don't know if she's
I'm
on
here.
the line. We know that.
She's
but
trying,
yeah.
she's trying to speak and we're not hearing her.
Back to
Hi there, guys. Can you hear me?
those that we're supportive of the cause.
Okay, I would concur with many of Andrew's points. I think speaking also from my own experience here in Frisco, I have always looked to the town of Breckenridge's model as very appealing because it captures such a large number of families. And from my experience, and maybe you shared in this experience, we didn't qualify for, say, low income funding, right? But we're still struggling to, the cost of living affects all of us. And so I really have always thought that that was an admirable model, that if you're working in the town of Breckenridge, in this community, you on some level qualify. And so I think that is a worthy, so when we start talking about scholarships, there is no cutoff point where people aren't affected. I mean, if you're a surgeon or something, like, I mean, I don't know, or an entrepreneur and you just have, unlimited funds. But I think 90% of the families in Frisco are tremendously affected by this. So I feel strongly about that, I do like that town of Breckenridge, the model of, okay, apply for everything else first, and then apply for town. Don't come to us first in line. Let's make sure that you're not already qualifying for the very low income subsidies, et cetera. I think that's obvious, makes obvious sense. Let's see, I may be all over the place here. The $65,000, I would love to meet Jennifer. That's always not settled well with me because I personally, looking at the tuitions, it's like pennies a year for each family. And so it doesn't make a measurable difference in the monthly lives of parents, of children. It's going to roofs, it's going to things that need to get fixed, but it didn't ever, I could never really wrap my head around or get my arms around, how is this really making a difference to our families here in Frisco? So that number I have not been a fan of. That being said, I definitely think we should continue to fund childcare and up the ante in a way that is measurable, that local families feel that impact. I think that's a great question that Andrew raised. Are we talking about Frisco residents or employees? I'm not really sure. I think that is something that, again, looking at the town of Breckenridge, I think you guys can help me clarify this, but if you work or live, I think that they both have merit. And we're so small, there's so much crossover that it makes sense to look at both. I do, though, want to stop short. I want to make, with housing, we have seen people find loopholes in our deed restrictions and find ways to move up here that don't work for local companies that are really enjoying the benefits of deed restricted housing. That, maybe it's not the vision that we had in mind. I think the same thing applies to childcare. I want to make sure, we have a lot more people wanting to move up here, and I welcome them. I certainly want them to live in our community, but I really think that this should be targeted at people that are working locally for local companies, whatever that means. That's a tough question. I don't have an answer, but I think you all get one after there. Demonstrate that locally based job that this would be supporting. I don't understand why not in-home in Breckenridge. To me, we did a split. We did in-home, we did Summit County Preschool, we also did Frisco Preschool. They all are great. If you're paying for childcare, I think you should qualify. I don't think it's our decision where you send your kid, and I don't think one is better than the other. That's just my opinion. Let's see. Back to the 65,000. You know, I know we did get details, but I would like to see a link. I would like to see how that money is supplementing teacher salaries and not going towards facilities, things that I understand.
It is.
Related at 6 1/2 dozen, but in the same way that Breckenridge has a teacher supplemental fund, I think that we owe that to our community members, to our teachers who are working so hard. And I'm almost done here. The last thing is I would like to understand how we can link this to STRs. And so if we're going to up the funding, this is one of the things that we've talked about, the intangible costs of STRs. And because it's so expensive to live here, many people choose not to because they just can't afford the housing and the childcare, right? And the low paying job. I mean, it just is not an equation. So let's link that to STRs. When we talk about STR fees, let's wrap that all together and have some of that fee funding a childcare program.
Just to clarify, we're not talking necessarily about a tax. We're talking about the fee, or not really. Okay.
Definitely.
Yeah, on that note, raise the fees. Raise the fees. I mean, you know, for the fact that our fees don't even cover our own licensing program is just, it shouldn't exist at that point, right? I mean, it's bankrupt, right? So we need to raise the fees. We need to get some money out of that and put it towards, you know, affordable housing and childcare as well. You know, but also let's go to the voters. Let's get as much as we can and go to the voters. Why not? Right? They want to support this issue. They also have, you know, strong opinions about the short-term rentals, but we'll go there another time tonight. You know, the $65,000 to the preschool, and I understand because Kim gave us the whole lowdown about how the money breaks out and everything. And you know, the bottom line is why is this successful preschool so underfunded, right? What are they missing? How can we help them perhaps get some federal money or whatever? How can we help them? Because they're already not making their nut at this point, and we're just subsidizing that. Right. And how is that fair as opposed to the at-home operations? Right. You know, and it's one thing if it's a teacher's fund and we're giving for just teachers, and then the at-homes, you know, fall in that, and those teachers are also covered. You know, $12.50 for anything in Summit County. I mean, that's a travesty. That's just wrong. It shouldn't, you know, that shouldn't be, right? So, you know, I'm not looking to pull the rug out from underneath the preschool, but I would say 2 budget cycles, they have to figure out how to fund their own situation from now. I would, you know, I'd give them personally, I would say, you have to make up this money. And then I would want to take that money and give it to scholarships and to teachers directly. That's how I'd like to see that. You know, I can't imagine that this preschool runs the way it does, as underfunded as it is, and is still able to get teachers. You know, I mean, because it's an issue, and it was an issue when my kid went there, and my kid's 9 now, and that was a long time ago at this point, and nothing new. And then in the meantime, everybody still can't afford to send their kids there. When your kid graduates and goes to kindergarten, all of a sudden you can afford more on your mortgage payment, which it all just doesn't add up. And we need some balance there. And so, I think we really have to get creative beyond what we've done with other federal funds. And what else can we get? I mean, we had 1A, and I think maybe some 5A money goes to this as well. I'm not sure, not at all. But where else is there money available for us to pull federally and at the state level to support preschools? I think that the big thing, going back to the 65,000, it's got to be some sort of more fair approach because of the at-homes and the churches and whoever else is running a preschool at this point to support our people. Let's there focus on scholarships as we can. Let's up the amount of money that we're putting into pre-K learning. I don't know what that number is, Bonnie. That would be a discussion with you as far as what's reasonable, what's not reasonable. Is it a percentage of the budget for most municipalities? What's normal for a typical municipality to kick into childcare? I appreciate Vail and Aspen and in looking at that, obviously their budgets are much higher than ours. So we have to take something into consideration there. Residents, I think all residents should be available to at least scholarships and that kind of thing, because the just people working within Frisco, as say my business in particular, we have a business license, we work out of our house, our operation is out of our house. Not that I'm trying to, but we wouldn't apply, we wouldn't, be covered in any of our stimulus or anything that we've given. Not that I want to be, and I'm not going to be, and I don't want to be pulling from that, but I know there are other people working out of their houses with legitimate businesses that, can't get any coverage only because of that. So I'd like that. I'd like us to take a look at that as well. I think that's about it. I think I kind of covered everything I want to do.
Good coverage.
Thank you.
All good points. I would just say that as I listen to everybody talk about it, I find it odd that, and I'm glad we're having this conversation now, that up till now, we haven't had this conversation in terms of community value, the same way that we advocate for an event like the barbecue challenge, or the way we don't have a problem with spending a couple $100,000 a year to support the historic park. And it's at least as important, at least as valuable, and certainly from an investment standpoint has much greater return. So I think we need to be comfortable with those kind of numbers without a doubt, and think of it in terms of that way. It's there's a budget placeholder for this, and it's a number, for the sake of argument, start with the number of $200,000, for example. But and in terms of continuing funding for that, I know we have a lodging tax already. The lodging tax fund is not dedicated to this type of activity, to this type of pursuit, just because that was the nature of the ballot language. But I think, when you talk about fees versus taxes, I think, Bonnie, maybe this would be helpful, is to kind of really understand, what really is available from a tax strategy, because I don't think that really, if you went out in April with something directed to raise a little bit of money from a tax perspective on STRs, what would that look like? What are the options to get to a number like $200,000 or $250,000? What would that be? What would that potential ballot language look like? And because I agree with Melissa, I think when you look at impact fees, for example, it's kind of hard to assign a real fee to this level of impact because it's really intangible. You don't really know. We haven't done any kind of work to develop that number, and it would be hard to say. But I think it's appropriate to sit there and say, well, the first thing I would suggest is raise the lodging tax. Get it to, another 0.25% and have that increase dedicated solely to the problem. I think is that if we're truly, to Melissa's point, if we're going to look at the lodging, the impact of STRs versus say hotel rooms, you might just want to focus on that from STRs. And is that one part of a package that ultimately, from an STR licensing perspective, starts to shift people's interest in short-term rentals, and that number at which long-term rentals start to look more attractive because the upfront costs and the maintenance costs of an STR have started to accrue a little bit. So it's part of that other conversation, but I want to have a number there that goes to that and be sure at what point does that stop passing through, because there's a lot of headroom still. There's a lot of room to run for a short-term rent in Summit County, and we haven't seen the top yet. So a lot of the stuff that you're talking about doing is just going to pass through to renters, which, okay, that's fine, mission accomplished, but it doesn't necessarily become a deterrent for short-term rentals if whatever your strategy is in terms of short-term rentals to create a package.
Dan, I'm sorry, you've lost me on.
Anyway,
I-
so I digress.
If we're talking about money for daycare facilities, whether we get it from,
No, I get it.
anywhere.
I digress.
let's stay with. how do we spend
I
it, not
digress,
how do we get it.
but it was just trying to make that connection. And then I was about to come back, but thank you very much for keeping me on task. But Thad, you're saying.
I don't want to get us into the weeds. I do want everybody to be aware, though, that you addressed the issue just now about an uncertainty on whether we could raise money for childcare purposes through an STR impact fee. You expressed uncertainty because you said it's intangible. We can't figure out what the dollar amount is. There are legal uncertainties beyond that. I think I could easily tell you that an impact fee on the act of engaging in a short-term rental that addressed directly the issue of affordability of housing through whatever program you like, whether you build it or you buy restriction, whatever the case may be, that's pretty easily supported, right? That we can get a study that will fairly directly show us the impact of short-term rentals on housing values overall, and then how those values relate to affordability. To take the next step, though, and say, because housing is unaffordable, we need to subsidize childcare for people, is going to trigger a red light at the back of the court's mind. And what that red light is flashing is it's saying, this looks like a general governmental purpose. This looks like a general governmental purpose. If you are gathering money for payment of a general governmental purpose, as opposed to a program to deal with the impacts of what you're collecting the money for, the courts are going to question it as a tax. And I understand what you're saying, that I understand. You're saying there is an impact between the two. But the impact, as you related it, was housing is so expensive, people can't afford childcare. Well, by that argument, we can subsidize food too, because housing is so expensive, people can't afford food, right? I don't think the government, I don't think a court's going to buy that argument. They're going to see a tighter relationship between the impact of STRs on housing and the program and the way you're spending money to address that housing.
Might the linkage be through employment in the town of Frisco? I mean, the
Maybe,
fact that,
maybe,
you know,
maybe, but there you just get the increment, right? Because the question there is, what is the degree to which short-term rentals increase the need for this, that, or the other type of employee over just general base requirements of society, right? That's the impact of your STR, not just the general need for employment. What need is driven by the short-term rentals, right? And our number of short-term rentals as opposed to everyone else's. That's the impact of short-term rentals, right? Because you're gathering, I hear what you're saying, but unless you carve that part out, the court's going to say, well, wait a minute, you're not, that's the impact of life in the big city and high real estate values, right? What part of that is being driven by what part is being driven by the fact that this is a great place to live and real estate's really expensive? And what part is being driven by this is a great place to live, real estate's really expensive, and the STR market is so high, we need more of this sort of employee who can afford this sort of housing.
Are we getting-
sorry,
Go ahead.
Can I just finish this
Sure.
thread here is rather than, so we talk about housing, right? So the linkage between STRs and housing is really strong, it's really clear. presumably we could prove it in a, through an analysis of the impact fee. Might though, the link or how you actually describe it be a workforce fee? I mean, this is a workforce. I guess that's what I'm getting at is as an employee, as somebody who is working in the town of Frisco, I guess what I'm getting at is this worthy of us pursuing and exploring, or are you saying, and I guess it would seem.
I think it would be difficult under the current state of the law, analyzing fees versus taxes, to tell you that I think a court would support a program that took impact fees and used them for things that weren't fairly directly related to affordable housing. And I don't think a court will.
We're having a conversation about the
Well,
money.
you can
about
call it,
raising the
what
money.
you like, but who are
We're
you going
talking-
to, who are you going to impose the fee on for this workforce issue?
Hold on, because we're
Sorry.
talking about a budget number between 0 and 200,000, right? I mean,
Not
realistic,
necessarily.
maybe 500,000.
Yeah.
Why don't we talk about, I think the question that's on the table isn't how are we going to fund that money? Because
I think
Ver-
arose by any other name. I mean, you
Because-
can call
but-
it workforce.
But
but if
very
you-
honestly, if we, with the budgets we have and the revenues we have and the reserves we have, we've got the money to do this
I
if
don't
we
think the-
view it as a
what I'm
thing. So I just
interested-
don't want to get the childcare conversation is confusing or complicated enough that to burden that conversation with how are we going to fund it as the first conversation?
I disagree because we've been having this conversation for as long as I've been on council
Mhm.
and many, many years before that. And we have yet to identify a sustainable revenue source for childcare. And so when we
That's just
talk
because the
about-
prioritization hasn't been there among previous budgets to put it in there, but we got the
Yeah.
money to put it in there without more revenue. So.
I don't necessarily agree. I mean, we're talking about $65,000 right now. Even if we increase, if we're talking about increasing it to 200,000, we could come up with the money, right?
Right.
If you look at the examples that staff provided us with Breckenridge, Aspen, it's a drop in the bucket. We need to significantly raise it. And in order to significantly raise it for Frisco families, Frisco employees, I think we need to look at either a tax or a fee. And so I think I appreciate, I don't want to get in the weeds either, but at some point we need to have these, we need to really flesh out the details. What are we talking about here? I mean, we can certainly go to our budget, cycle and say, yeah, okay, let's increase it to 75,000, of course, but that's just sticking another Band-Aid on it and pushing it down for another council to deal with, in my opinion. So I think there's some value in having this conversation.
I would respectfully suggest to you that if you run a study on nothing more than the impact of STRs on the cost of housing, right? And how, and the impact of STRs on the demand for workers at lower wages who need that housing, I think you will come up with such a large number to support a fee that it will be way beyond what would ever be politically supportable. In other words, what I'm saying is I don't think you need the study to go down the road of addressing what is the impact of this on childcare. Forget about the issue of whether a court would buy it at the end of the day. I don't think you need to get there because I think there's such a high level of need and impact from the STRs on the affordable housing issue that you're going to come up with such a huge number that you would never think to impose it on a pro rata basis on all of your, I mean, I think that will be a very large number.
Yeah. So maybe right now, if for the sake of the conversation, we're going to identify X, Y, and Z, 3, 4, 5 potential ways of funding this, and along these lines of the legality, what if, our pre-K education is tied in with something like housing helps or something, if there was legalese or whatever to be able to, and that you're saying that we need to study in order to do that. Is that the way we need to get the money that we need? And if the money we're raising from 65,000 to 200,000, let's be clear, we're not just giving that to the preschool, right? We're talking about giving
Direction
them
you're looking for.
65,000 and we're raising up to 200,000 for scholarships, for teacher funding, and whatever else we identify as the areas of what we're needing to fund, right? And so, we're not going to come up with the answer today of what that's going to be as far as what tax we're going to bring to the people, or as far as what, level we're going to apply fees to whatever area, be that SDRs, be that to lodging tax, be that to on top of our sales tax. I mean, I don't know what the right answer is there, and that's going to be a Bonnie question as well, which I feel like is a work session beyond us just sitting here with the four of us, 5, 6, 7, 8 of us, right? And so I also support from that, I think we should go to the citizens, the people who are dealing with these matters, in order to be able to see how much is it that people are needing, what do they need as amount of scholarships, what do they need as far as assistance, what do they see as the ability to find funding in other places, because I think at this point, in a few weeks from now, we're going to have a few more answers than we normally had. And so we're not going to identify a new thing to where in a few weeks from now, there can easily be maybe 5, 10 new different possibilities, right? So we have to raise more money for childcare, or for pre-K childcare, right? Right now, we're throwing out $200,000 off the cuff, off the top of our head, for no reason at all, just because 65 is not enough.
It's a placeholder.
Right? It's a placeholder, right? I mean, what should that number be, right? Should that number be $1 million in just providing for local?
I don't view any of us individually as having a solution. This seems like something, and in collaboration with, whether it's other towns, with the providers, the parent, this is something that needs a committee to hash it out outside of just staff time. I think this is when staff could use outside assistance, not a paid consultant, but a community group that comes together to address this issue. It's citizen involvement. Again, I think the world is going to change in early August for these types of focuses, whether it's at community outreach or opportunities for funding. But that, to me, is how this conversation should evolve, not just the 4 or 7 of us, along with the staff recommendation saying we need to spend more money.
Right.
Great. How are we going to spend it, whether we raise it through taxes or fees, or just grab it out of the budget because we're doing well? How's it going to be spent, to me, as a committee organization of
And how's
impacted?
it gonna be administered too? I think that's a key thing.
It
here.
all is more, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot to this, that when we talked with the town of, the city of Aspen, I mean, they've had their programs in place for a long time, and they have a lot of staff, a lot of time, and a lot of money committed to it, and they have a specific tax that goes to it. So there's a lot of work involved in it, and I'm glad to hear you say that you would like to explore further, rather than what we were presenting to you was, we can do that option, we can follow a pattern of someone else, or we can just give them more money and let them figure out how they're going to do the programming and the tuition programs. That's basically what our 2 possibilities of recommendations we were kind of presenting to you. Because if we do it internally, if we try to do these programs internally, we're looking at significant staff increases over the years. And I'm not sure that's really which direction you would like to go.
Right. On my part, whose bucket does this fall in,
Yes,
right? For
yes.
staff, right? And so are we now going to come away from this discussion with how much more for who to do? And I don't know who it is. Aspen has the housing coordinator as this is under their, we're not going to do that to our housing coordinator. That's already, we have other, things we need to take off our housing coordinator's plate. So with that, we need to identify who and how in order for what, And I fully agree and we need community input. So I think you have direction as far as we're not looking to increase $65,000 to the preschool. We are looking to give them that $65,000 in the next budget cycle. That's what I'm hearing personally. They might not agree, and then you can go over that. Then how are we getting to this next number? You have the answer today as far as I'm understanding what the question is.
Yeah,
I
right.
think I agree with that. So to your questions, desire to provide financial assistance, yes. Increase that amount, yes. Increase by 100,000 if we can afford it. Let's evaluate that. Should Summit County,
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
should Summit County Preschool administer this program? I think I would follow your recommendation on that, as Bonnie pointed out. If yes, are there criteria council would like included in such financial assistance? I think we've covered that. At least I share my thoughts. And just in my closing thought is that this is a great thing to do for the time being, but let's have that bigger conversation. Let's keep pushing this, that we can have a sustainable revenue source for childcare beyond the 165.
Yeah.
I am not willing to say just throw in another 100,000 to solve the problem unless there is a targeted process of spending it in the most appropriate way. So is it a placeholder? Like I said, it's just to say we're going to throw another 100 at it. I
Can I
disagree.
So, and I would tend to agree. To me, it seems like we need to work backwards from what's our goal? Is our goal is to have every child in Frisco taken care of? Is that our community value? If that's what it is, and also to create capacity, because I think that point that you brought up earlier is really most. If we're looking at Lake Hill in 5 years, for example, those kind of things, we need to be able to help with either seed money or do something to help create more capacity for this. And there has to be a substantial amount of money on the hook for that. I think this is the kind of thing from a tax perspective, especially if there's linkage to SDRs, however that's created. And that was my point before, is that if you're going to create that nexus, you have to look at those secondary and tertiary impacts, because it's designed to have some kind of impact on housing. And that has to be part of the conversation, which is why I was bringing it up. But anyway, but I think our goals then should be clearly articulated. One, to me, is teacher retention. And, so do we do that by going to understanding the tuition hikes, for example, that Summit County Preschool are going to be incorporating here in the near future? Are those tuition hikes ostensibly to create room in their operating budget to get to $15 to $18 an hour? And I think that really is something I need to understand before we take that next step, because that should be an immediate goal. Teacher retention and the value of that to the kids who go there. My kids were lucky enough to have some of the same teachers throughout, and they still maintain relationships with those teachers today. So I think that should be identified first. And if they get to that, they give us that number and say, this is the shortfall, we start there and say, we need to at least provide that. I don't have a problem if it's going to take them 2 to 3 years of tuition increases to get there, to have a kind of a dual program. We continue to support them with those numbers as long as that's their stated goal. And we see that's happening. And at the same time, start to come up with the money with that identified need to the families that need that money, and then have that applied, because both have to happen at the same time, I think. So, but those to your points about, well, what, why, I would start there. Who, how many kids, what is that number? And then work back from that. And there's going to be a nexus there again between that and the increased tuition, assumably at the preschool. We're going to know what that delta is, and there's our target to go get it. In terms of, then we have to talk about administration. How are we going to get the money to the people that we need it? Getting money to the preschool in the short term. If it needs to be more than $65,000 in the short term, I'm on, frankly. If it goes to teacher retention and teacher salaries, whatever that compensation package is going to look like, I'm on board. I don't know how the town can participate in that compensation package as an outside entity. I'd be curious to have that conversation. If we have a pool of money outside the ability of the Summit County Preschool, for example, to administer it. How do we get that money directly to teachers as a town conduit? I don't know what that looks
Well,
like.
it's like the town of Breckenridge has, whatever they call it, the teacher supplemental income.
Does that,
thing That's $165,000.
does that go right to, do teachers apply for that? Or does that go to the preschool as a line item for?
Preschool.
Yeah, so, but anyway,
That's
just want that question
So
answered.
like something like that is like,
As long as I know it's, an operating, their line item, of their operating budget, it says teacher salaries, or salaries and compensation, there's a number, I'll take that 100, pick a number, $100,000, I'm gonna put it right in there, and they come back and they go to their people and they go, guess what? We're all making $16 an hour now. We can have an immediate impact for the kids at the school right now, and then we can still come back and say, yeah, you're gonna be raising tuitions. It's gonna be more expensive for these people. They're not covered by these programs. They're they're the 15%ers, or whatever that number is above the 85. So, and then now we can figure out a way to have that money available for them to come apply for whatever that program is gonna look like. That's how I kind of see that laying out. But ultimately, I think we see success by linking these kind of programs to a sustainable fund. We see it with 5A. We see the lodging tax was designed to improve our recreational facilities and visitor information center, things of that nature. I think that kind of nexus on those kind of tax questions, especially if there's a linkage to SDR somehow, I don't see how you lose on that tax ask personally. Again, depending on what that number is.
I'd like to, we're kind of late in the year and, getting ready to do the 2022 budget. So I guess my question would be to you then, for this upcoming budget, I don't foresee that we have time to, do the committees and do all the studies and everything that we need to. Are you comfortable with us bringing you a number? I mean, it won't be 65,000, it would be a different number, and maybe we can justify it. What we've done in the past is we've given, the 65,000 has typically been for salaries, to supplement salaries and recruitment and retention. And then in the past, as you remember, we have done some capital projects that they've come to us and asked us for. Sometimes they've been in the middle of the year, sometimes they've been during the budget cycle when we can. So it would be my suggestion to ask you to give us a number that we can look at for this year, that we can give them. And then also, I would like to see the preschool give us their 5-year capital plan. We have a 5-year capital plan, and then we can determine even this year what we could supplement them for next year for capital projects. That would kind of be the way I'd like to see it go for this year. We just don't really have enough time to complete an entire program, and certainly not to go to the voters.
well, and
For
that's
this year.
why I would be comfortable with, like, we're just totally throwing numbers, pulling them out of thin air, but at the same time, $100,000 does not go very far when you're talking about childcare. So I would look to you, Bonnie, to give us a recommendation as to what can we afford that, is a tangible difference. I mean, it's not going to change the
Well,
world, but.
Yeah, let us maybe spend some time with Jennifer. I have not met her yet.
Yes.
And maybe kind of see where they're headed right now and see what would fill their needs for this next year. And then certainly going forward in future years, or maybe even do a budget amendment if we are soon enough and we have a more accurate number of what it's going to take to fund a childcare program.
That's the missing piece right now, because normally it should be right here. It should be weighing in on that part, because I want to know what her operating budget looks like with the starting hourly of $18 an hour. Because to me, I start dishwashers at $18 an hour. So it's ludicrous that we're not in that $18 to $25 an hour range for people we trust our kids' welfare to. And then that's that piece that we start with. How do we get them there right away to make an impact immediately? And then the funding can follow. I think we have the money, to Andrew's point, to some degree, we have the money to seed this and get it going. And then we have time to evolve it, either whether it's a tax strategy or if it's a combined strategy with some other, that we're going to dovetail with some other strategy to leverage some other way. We have time to do that. But I don't want to hold that piece up while we try and figure out the policy piece. That's kind of Definitely really interesting.
interested in their 5-year plan and, to see where they're getting their money from beyond tuition hikes. Because tuition hikes does not answer their problem. Tuition hikes is part of the problem,
Well,
I mean,
on
and,
paper. it
and it's
does,
like,
But it doesn't
well,
solve our problem,
well, sure,
of-
but that,
of
does yeah, that
creating
doesn't,
access.
creating access. It doesn't solve any of that problem.
Agreed.
Right. And yeah, $18 an hour, we start interns at in our business. And I have entrusted my kid with these people who have been great, and they are really underappreciated and really underpaid.
Okay. Is that, so.
I think we got this.
Yeah. It's a complicated conversation. and I know we covered, we wandered a little bit, but,
It's good.
all right, awesome.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much for taking this on. And we can probably talk a little bit more from a committee perspective, if that's something we want to follow up the next time we bring this together. probably. All right, moving on to work session agenda item number 3. We're going to open that work session right now. 619 Granite Street Workforce Housing Project Design Development Update from our Don Reif. Thank you, Don. And Eva and
Hi there, can you guys hear me? I'm not sure how this is working virtually here, but
Can you try again, Chris?
yes, can you hear me or see me? Hello, hello, can you see me?
5-minute break just so we can see if we can get Chris's audio going.
I'm good with the 5 minutes.
Yeah, sure, that's
Okay,
all right.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
all right.
You did a good job with, what was the one you had to do the one time? Yeah, EV charging station.
Do you want me to keep talking?
To all of our
I'll keep.
participants on the outside, I am going to be turning off Zoom and
Yes.
restarting it.
Yes.
Does that make
You
sense,
copied-
Steve?
You copied me.
I know you can hear me.
I ran my eyes over it very quickly. Yes.
Yeah, this is all I
They
can
were,
come up with.
yeah, as best I could tell, they were all reasonable. I think my response to him.
You didn't even respond to yourself.
You're just using estimated salary and benefits and the like. If you want to throw some value for the computer system they use, the office they sit in, right? I mean, if you want.
Dial 970-668-9130.
Chris, can you unmute and try?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Still not hearing you.
Do you want me to?
Chris, can you try phoning in? Yeah. And if not, I can put them on speakerphone.
No. Veronica, can you please, oh, Chris, you're gonna do a call in? Do you need a number?
Welcome to Zoom. Enter your meeting ID followed by pound. You have not entered any numbers. Please. You entered 93570061449. This meeting ID does not exist. Please re-enter your meeting ID. Enter your participant ID followed by pound. Otherwise, just please enter the meeting password followed by pound. You have not entered any numbers. Please re-enter the meeting password followed by pound. You have not entered any numbers. Please re-enter the meeting password followed by pound. You entered 93550061449. This meeting password is in. Welcome to Zoom. Enter your meeting ID followed by pound. Enter your participant ID followed by pound. Otherwise, just press pound to continue. Please enter the meeting password followed by pound.
I need a password.
You have not entered any numbers. Please re-enter the meeting. You are in the meeting now. There are 8 participants in the meeting. This meeting is being recorded. You are muted. You can mute or unmute yourself by pressing *6. *6.
Nope, still nothing.
I think your phone might be muted, Chris, not your, are you muted on your phone?
No, can I get my phone and I get my phone speaker?
Yeah. That's,
Can you hear me now?
okay. One last option. Chris, can you call, do you have his number?
You guys can't hear me?
Oh.
Here we go, yay. Here we go.
Got him.
All right, hey.
The hot mic.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Yeah, we're getting you through the phone. We're still not getting you on we see your camera. We're getting your sound through the phone. So thank you.
And
We can
Chris,
move
if you want to
forward.
go ahead and
Sorry
start,
about that.
Chris, if you want to go ahead and pull up the PowerPoint, I'll just do a quick introduction and we can get rolling here.
Okay, want me to share my screen?
Yes, please.
Veronica, can you please change Russell to a host? There you go. Nope, not yet.
I don't have
Oh.
that permission.
Okay, let me see if I can. There we go.
Okay, there we go. How
All
does that
right.
look?
Great. Thank you, Chris. I will go ahead and get started here. Council, thanks. Sorry about that delay here. You'd think after about whatever the past 16 months of Zooming, we'd have all the glitches, but there's going to be more glitches. It's technology. We're working through it. But purpose of why we're here tonight is to give an update on the 619 Granite Street project. This is also known as the CDOT lot. As you know, back in April of 2020, we entered into an agreement with the Colorado Department of Transportation, who's the owner of this property at 619 Granite, to come up with 80% designs. It's for the purpose of cost estimating for, and then ultimately, hopefully going through in a partnership to build this project. Through the phase of this, we hired a group led by Studio Architecture to develop these 80% construction drawings. They've met with you most recently in March of 2021 in order to go over the conceptual plans. This has gone to the Planning Commission and received sketch plan approval at their May 20th Planning Commission meeting. So the next step here is to share what they found so far and give Town Council an update on the cost estimate. The punchline on that number is at the very end of the packet that you had this evening. But prior to getting to that, I'd like to turn it over to Chris Russell, who's the lead architect on this project, to go over where we're at in the designs and gain any feedback that the council may have. With that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Chris.
Thanks, Don. Appreciate it. And thank you, council. Honored to be here again in front of you guys to present the improved Granite Street Workforce Housing Project that we first presented to you a few months ago, as Don mentioned. My goal for this evening is to update you on how the project has evolved architecturally, to present you where we are with the current costs, and to ultimately confirm that we have council support for the project as the town and CDOT take the next steps and solidify their partnership on the project as we move quickly toward 80% construction documents. So we're eyeing that there in early December. But before I jump into the improvements that we've made, I'd like to look back quickly, just kind of a refresher for everybody. I know you got the packets, but just to kind of quickly summarize the four main goals for this project that we identified during conceptual design, as those goals were or are what have shaped the revisions that we've made in the past few months and what continue to drive the decisions we make moving forward. So those four goals, as a reminder: number one, to maximize the number of units. Number two, affordability. And that means both during construction and after occupancy. The third goal was sustainability. Fourth goal was livability, and that means to provide enough parking, the right size of units, the access to the unit, and sound transmittance through the unit. So a lot of things that we try to identify in those four main goals. And to bring it back a little bit further, we presented in the first few weeks of working with the town and with CDOT three building types: a townhouse style. You guys all know what a townhouse is. A tuck under style, and by that I mean a typical corridor loaded apartment building with tuck under parking that actually parks in under the building itself, and a walk up style where the units are stacked on each other and accessed from just a central stair instead of a corridor. So through the project and looking at these building types through the lens of those four goals, we identified that the townhouse style and the tuck under style did not check the boxes of affordability and livability, or both. The one that we had the trajectory moving forward with that checked all the boxes was this walk-up style. So to kind of bring it back full circle, that's what we presented to you back in March, I believe it was, and what we've continued to move forward with here in these last few months. So looking at the site plan, it remains mostly the same as what was presented in March. There's two walk-up style buildings. Each one is 3 stories tall with 11 units each. One faces 7th Avenue to the east and the other faces Granite Street to the south. There's one small paseo in the southeast that runs between the buildings and connects the internal sidewalk to Granite Street. That's all unchanged from the March presentation. A parking area in the northwest corner of the site remains, where all but 2 of the parking spaces are covered by carports. The number of units remains unchanged at 22, and the number of parking spaces remains unchanged at 33. All of the ground floor units have an accessible entry from the common stair cores. That's a question that came up, I think, during our first meeting with you, and then at Planning Commission as well, was the accessibility of those ground floor units. That's a quick summary of the site plan, mostly unchanged. And let me know if these slides aren't changing for you guys. Do you guys see the landscape plan? Looks like you do. This is a new plan that you guys haven't seen. We included this as not only a pretty picture, but also to show the amount of landscaping material that we're proposing, and also how we've taken a look at what is becoming a very important corner along 7th and Granite, and how we're going to address that architecturally and with landscape. There's a small, but I think very useful, what will become a good community benefit there. A small concrete paver patio with a bench, a place to rest and enjoy Frisco. Another plan that you guys haven't seen before, but has been very useful in these past few months, that I thought would be important to include here, is a shadow analysis. This has been very instrumental in our discussions with our sustainability consultants as we look and continue to look at how to best utilize both the building roofs and the carport roofs to maximize performance of a future photovoltaic system. The bottom row, just to summarize this, the bottom row is the shadows cast during the winter solstice at 10 a.m. on the left, noon in the center, and 2 p.m. on the right. The top row shows the shadows cast during the same times, but during the summer solstice. And one thing to note is that, there's questions about, from Planning Commission as well, how much solar access are these roofs, going to see? And our main photovoltaic array, we've identified as Carport A, which is in the northwest, that will see consistent solar access throughout the year, as well as the east roof of the east building, the west facing roof of the east building, and the south facing roof of the south building. Sorry, we call it the west building. So the south roof of the west building. The next slide here, more technical drawings here, but the floor plans essentially remained unchanged from what you saw. We're looking at the west building here. The east building they're very similar, and this helps to maintain affordability during construction. The first and second floors of each building stack nicely above each other, and the third floor reduces in size, and that's to honor the code required 10-foot step back for the third floor. This is where the smaller 1-bedroom and the studio units are located. The next slide, again, just shows the east building, very similar. The one thing to note here is that because of the east building, the one that faces 7th Avenue, also is adjacent to the alley. I don't know if you can see my pointer here, but the studio unit on the third floor in the west building, that's a 1-bedroom, but because of the 10-foot step back requirements, we have to honor that from the alley, and that reduces that from a 1-bedroom to a studio. So what that does, even though we have the same number of units that we proposed in March, that does change the mix a little bit. We reduce a 1-bedroom and gain a studio. I'm sorry, these are taking a while to refresh here. The black and white elevations, before we get to the pretty pictures here, I think the black and white elevations are useful, just understanding the massing of the building and its relationship to the bulk plane as well, and other code items there. Again, west building, same kit of parts as the east building, just slightly different here. As we start looking at the more pretty pictures, one thing to note is the changes that we made to address some of the comments that came out of our discussions with you guys previously and with our discussion with Planning Commission. One of the items that came out was to reduce the appearance of the big, long third-story roof. So we introduced hip roofs at the end, which reduces the overall length of the roof and reduces the overall mass, which allows more solar access to the site by reducing the size of the shadows cast by the roof. So that was a pretty substantial change and improvement to the building since you guys saw it last. Another item was to reduce the amount of lighter colors, and we didn't propose any colors and materials to you guys in March, but this is something that came up on planning board. We were proposing a bit of white, but we were asked to kind of tone that down a little bit. So we reduced the amount of white accents, and we darkened the white colors to an off-white or almost a light gray color. We also heard from planning board to take a look at adding stone, which we are now using as a base course around the building and as an accent material on our two street-facing facades. You can kind of see them jump up a little bit here on the east building. So starting to use those a little bit more while being still cost conscious there. The west building elevations, again, same kit of parts, just different locations and colors of the materials change. Now we start to get into a little more of the 3D, how you're actually going to view the project here. One of the other things that I haven't mentioned yet, but another item that came out from our discussions with you and from planning was how do we make it a little more modern, right? And you know, that's kind of a gray fuzzy area. You know, what is modern? What is more mountain modern? You know, a lot of the understanding is that it's a little more open glass and it's nice, clean lines. So we tried to implement that a little bit from what we showed you and what we showed Planning Commission as well. And this is our proposal there. So what we did, we connected the windows. If you can see the windows in the living spaces on the first and second floor, we connected those visually, not with glass, but something that creates a more visually open, like the glass is connected and larger there. Again, an eye on affordability, but also to bring that aesthetic of mountain modern, you know, a little more mountain modern. We also adjusted the roof slopes a bit, added a few dormers, added a few shed roofs to provide hierarchy through the elevation. So it's not just a consistent, you know, gable after gable, and to provide some interest along that elevation. We've implemented a little more playful layout of windows while still being cost effective. You can see some are vertical, some are horizontal. They're slightly different sizes. Without going crazy with our window types, we kept it more affordable, just played with how we oriented those. We've added simple, more modern detailing in the gables, over the street entries, and over the windows as well on the street-facing facades. You can kind of see those sunscreens here, and the gable details up here on the roof. The next slide, this is a view of the west building. Again, same kit of parts. We introduced a little more of the corrugated metal material in some different places. We bring up the stone all the way 2 floors to give that a little more emphasis, a little more uniqueness to this building as well as the base color change as well. The doors change color, and more of the background fiber cement paneling changes color as well. One thing to note is another item that came up in Planning Commission, and I believe with you guys, is how do we deal with this back elevation, right? This image that you see on the bottom. How do we give it, you know, close to the same attention and detail and interest that we gave to the street-facing facade? So we took a look at that, and what we're doing here is we're trying to use the same number of materials as the street facing facade to give it that interest, to give it that materiality. We broke down the center of this large portion, this large mass in the middle, by using a visual kind of center chimney that you'll see around Frisco and around the mountain towns, flanked by either side of like a living space. It's also good to note that the main driver for the architectural of the back facade is to minimize any snow shedding from the upper roof down to the adjacent sidewalk below. There's a sidewalk running adjacent to the building there. So we've really tried to slope the snow away if it were to fall to minimize any risk there with pedestrians. The carports, something that's been kind of focused on in our discussions with you and with Planning Commission as well. How do they look? How do they act? It's still ongoing. This is showing 2 to 12 slopes. We actually had a meeting, a week ago with some sustainability and some photovoltaic, experts, just about how to slope these. Should they be flat with tilted PV array on top? So we didn't exactly nail that down yet, but this is showing our current sod, those all at 2 to 12. This is kind of the last of the pretty pictures here. The top image is if you're on 7th Street or 7th Avenue looking down the alley. But the main image here is the bottom one looking at that very important corner of Granite and 7th. And what I think this shows is how two similar buildings can be detailed and are detailed in such a way to provide uniqueness in the architecture while still creating a comfortable sense of place. And the place that is sensitive to its existing surroundings, the neighborhood, and a place that will be relevant and exciting throughout its many years. As you can see here, we've raised the stone. We've located the stone on this corner. This isn't showing the landscaping, but that will just add to this view as well. They look like separate buildings, but they look like they're of the same language here. So that's kind of the summary of the architecture, where we went, where we are. If you guys have any questions about that, absolutely, I'd be happy to discuss that. The numbers here, as Don kind of alluded to, these are always changing a little bit. We're trying to nail it down as much as we can at this point. We feel like we have the main drivers of this project now. As you can see, it's changed a little bit to what you guys have seen. We're sitting just at north of $6 million for the project. And if you divide that by 22, you're looking at a cost per unit of $275,000. So it's a little bit different from what's in your packet, I believe. This is an updated one. And again, I can go into some of the add-alts that we're looking at. Some of these alternatives are to increase sustainability to allow us to get down to as net zero as we can in the future. So would love to discuss those as well. Hopefully that's a good overview of where we were, where we are now, how we got there, and hopefully we have your continued support as we move quickly toward this 80%. But again, would open the comments and thank you guys for your time.
Appreciate that. I know Andrew, Well, Andrew and Melissa sat on this committee to start and have shepherded this project through with the committee, with the folks from CDOT. I think Susan was participating as well, right? And so quite a collaborative effort. And one of you guys kind of talk about.
Well, I mean, we've gotten to hear from a lot of effort from a lot of good people, and I'm good. Meaning, it's when I say I'm good with this. I don't know if I'm good, but I think we're in the right place. And I think what we're here for, at least in my mind, is we're all now prepared to have the hard conversations with CDOT about how we're going to get it built, and how are we going to operate it after it's built? So with council blessing on the project, on more or less the numbers, they're not going to be exact to what they are, but we're in the right ball field. So, you know, I think it's time, these guys will finish up their portion of the scope to get us to 80%. And then it's up to the team, however that is defined, to create the deal with CDOT to get it into reality.
Yes, and if I could add real quick, our partners from CDOT, both David Fox and Aaron Lucero were planning on being available for this evening, but they both had ended up having a conflict. So they are not available on the line, but we'll certainly share any comments or questions you have with them as well.
So I think it's great. I mean, I think the unit mix is great. I really like how it's laid out on the site. The number of units, obviously, you know, we have 22, I think is the so everything seems like it's headed from a development concept performa standpoint, headed in the right direction. I can't help but put on my planning commissioner hat just a little bit, because this is my last chance to get to provide input to you all. So Chris, I think early on, and some of this just my personal aesthetic, I know that we had said, you know, give us something modern, you know, something that looks different. And it sounds like the feedback we got.
Sorry to interrupt. I'm catching about 1 out of every 10 words you're saying. Melissa, sorry.
Sorry, can you hear me better if I'm in my microphone? Is that better? Okay.
Much better. Yes,
Really
thank you.
bad about that. I'm sorry, Chris. I want to just talk about design, and it's not necessarily up to council, but this is my chance to give you input on design. And I have really high hopes that we can nail this. And one reason you were selected because of your portfolio of work and your ability to sort of mix affordability with style and modern aesthetic. And so I know that you're being pulled in various directions, but to me, this building looks like every other building that's been developed in Frisco over the last 10 years. And I would love it to have a signature look. There's been a couple other projects recently that have that white, that Planning Commission has said, get rid of the white. On the other hand, we all love the Sky Shoots project at Copper, and council has visited that. I know the mayor was there recently. Don, you were there. That is the most lauded project in this area right now in terms of aesthetic quality. This goes a totally different direction. And so I'm not saying copy Sky Shoots, but did we just totally lose him?
No.
Are you still there, Chris?
Yes, still here.
About the white, I understand that there's a chroma issue sometimes, and Planning Commission really steers away from that. But at the same time, some of our best buildings in recent years have a white element. So I'm not gonna like lobby hard for white, but some more contrast. I mean, again, look at Don and Eva know our development landscape extremely well. The combination of a beige, gray, red door, kind of seen it like on every other building. And I think one that was recently approved as well. So I would push you to you know, it's not up to me. I'm very cognizant. This is just my personal opinion. But I love this project. I can't wait for it to be built. I think the unit mix, the overall composition of the building is cool. I love, it's very well organized. But there's something not hitting the mark for me. And I just want to I want to encourage you to go a little bit further and show some flair, show some, you know, we don't want to look back in 10 years and be like, oh my God, what were we thinking by any means? But I also don't want it to look like it was designed 10 years ago either. And I realize a lot of this is because of the feedback you got from Planning Commission. So I want to be respectful of that. But that's just where I'm at. And I'm very much looking forward to having the conversations on funding, who's bringing this to reality, how's it being financed, are there partners, what's going on with that? So, but thank you for all your work, Chris. Really, really good job. And staff.
Chris, when we were first picking your proposal off of the other proposals, I gotta say it was totally based off of your past, portfolio and all of the work that you guys did and the way things look, and you had modern aesthetic for a lot of that, right? And then I feel like this came up, and I honestly am, it was straight away, it was suburbia, right? It wasn't Mountain Town at all initially. Coming back to us, I feel like different than we were with the PRA, as far as we asked for a bunch of changes and we had a very different look. Right now, we're like the same thing with a few things thrown at it. It is what it is. It's CDOT. It's going to go down the road. I'm not going to, stop your project because I can't at this point. But, modern aesthetic to me was definitely not more gables and that sort of thing. If you look at the gables, I'm going to start getting into it. Like, look at the back, right? Your two big gables that pitch down right over the doorways. That looks like Ice Dam Central to me, on the dark side of the moon, where there's, never gets sun back there, right? I don't see at all how this parking lot is not an ice rink the entire winter. Like, if you can convince me of other, great. If you can't, we're going to end up with what we end up with anyway, is what it is. I don't even see how that's, how that even works. Just as example, Copper Mountain Timber Creek was built 40 years ago at this point. I was the building manager there, and the carports remind me very much of that. And go take a look at that place in the winter. And, go put your crampons on it. Take a look at that place in the winter. Modern aesthetic, yes, we were pretty broad with modern aesthetic. I kind of feel like we updated from suburbia to like mountain as it is. Modern aesthetic to me was maybe a little more, articulated roofs, less gables, that sort of thing. I like what you did with the windows. And I agree that hit some of that, and I appreciate that. That took less away from the suburbia and gave us a little more current mountain. I personally, I think we could have gone bigger with density, but I know that you've already been through Planning Commission and everything. Personally, I did not get to say on that first meeting, I really would like to see, this is my own thing, I would really like to see an affordable commercial space or two somewhere, because I think that supports the overall, the overall need that we have in affordable housing and in getting people here and in starting businesses and operating here. Different story. I don't expect to see that on this. I just feel like that was just sort of a miss. With that, I think I'll about end it there. I don't mind it. It looks like the next 2 blocks down to me, which doesn't thrill me, which is very high density. I think this could have been higher density to give you the same outcome. Sorry with that. I don't mind the colors, the windows. That is, I feel like a lot of that's superficial, and we can talk about white or not, or, white being the, more modern. And I know you didn't hear that from, or you heard a lot of that from Planning Commission. And, I just sort of feel like I'm looking at the same thing that we looked at the last time, and we have a couple changes on it. That's what I feel like. I'm sorry, I'm being honest. And, and that's where I land. I think we could have done more personally. Then it also comes down to, at what point, what of the $6 million, what are we responsible for? What are you looking for from us in this whole thing? How many units are we gonna, and I don't expect you to answer this necessarily right at this moment, but how many units are we ending up with? And or are we just subsidizing affordable throughout, right? Because I know this is also CDOT housing, right? So X amount of these units are for CDOT entirely, right? How many do we get to play with for Summit County or for Frisco or for Town of Frisco? What does that look like? Are you planning on, one building is a CDOT building and the other building is an affordable housing building? How does that break out? And I think I'll leave it at that. I'm not going to stop this project as it stands, but I think we could have gone further and we could have done better, and that's where I sit.
I can answer some of the
Yeah,
questions.
please.
I'm making reference here back into the intergovernmental agreement between CDOT and the town,
Yes.
which is essentially we're going to plan it, figure out what it's going to cost. And at that point, we're both going to step back and here's what's going to happen. After receipt of cost estimates for construction of the project, CDOT and the town shall properly determine in their respective sole and absolute discretion whether to construct the project. So we've gotten a dollar amount, right? And just by the way, in the planning of the project, each party was to come into the planning process proposing only that number of units that they thought that they would be ready to buy or own at the end of the day, right? Have costs allocated to them. So I'll let the planners answer that question as to which of the parties came to the table with what number of units, but this agreement anticipates that's how this was going to be planned. So if somebody tells me there's 22 units, but the two parties only want 15, between the two of them, I'm going to be real surprised. At any rate, in the event each party desires to construct the project, CDOT and the town shall negotiate in good faith with the goal of entering into a separate agreement executed in accordance with section 5.01. That means through the state controller's office. They're kind of picky down there. Execute or an amendment to this agreement, execute that equitably allocates between the parties the ownership of the dwelling units to be constructed and the cost of construction of the dwelling units, right? So the answer to that question lies with you in part. But then the agreement goes on in anticipation of, well, how will we figure out what each unit is to cost the parties? There's a paragraph called Formula for Cost Allocation under Potential Future Agreement. And basically what it says is we're going to design it. We're going to figure out the cost to about an 80% level and all costs, right? Not just the construction that you're looking at today at $275 a unit, but what is the land value on a per unit basis? That'll be done by an appraisal from CDOT, assuming $2.5 million worth of value, add 114,000 to each unit to this number. So at any rate, it lays that allocation out. It says we figure out what the sum total is. We figure out how many units each party is going to own at the end of the day. We do the math, and CDOT gets credit for the dollar value of its land, basically. So there's your allocation and formula, but the answer to the question on how many are we going to own at the end of the day exactly, I think is what is going to be determined. I know that CDOT also wants to have some discussions.
But like based off of CDOT's needs initially, right? 'Cause,
Right.
Like, we're not gonna get to say, well, we want 10 units. You know, like CDOT's gonna tell us, this is what I'm assuming. CDOT's gonna tell us, we need X amount of units for our employees.
Well, I think we've already told each other that. I think CDOT has told us, we want this number, and we've
Okay.
told them, we want this number, and that's why we planned on 22.
Right, it all starts based on that ratio between the land value and the construction cost. So that ratio drives the whole conversation in terms of the pro rata distribution of units and typology. So, but those conversations just started. You know, Don and Andrew and I and Eva, we and Susan was there. I'm trying to remember who was in the room where it happened. So that started, and you know, I don't know if Don, you're ready to update us on that process, or at least in terms of next steps, not, you know, specificity about where it is right now, but you know, how far it's gotten, where CDOT's got involved. We probably want to wrap this up in a few minutes. I had a couple comments about the building as it were. And, you know, I echo some of the sentiments, you know, Chris, I came to the party late in terms of the committee meetings, but I would just say, yeah, to me, there's not a lot of wow in it, but at the end of the day, maybe it was more of a function of a form thing. There's an opportunity there. Maybe it was missed, maybe it's not. It's hard for me to say, but it certainly in my world is going to blend in more than stand out, you know, and maybe that is again a function of the cost. You know, you check a lot of boxes there, but the cost of the units really is really going to drive this conversation. And I'm not vested enough in the process to really know what those aspirational goals from a design standpoint, where that lands in terms of a cost per unit standpoint. But my comment about this in terms of density is I don't want to miss another opportunity where we haven't created a workforce parking overlay district that allows us to create more density with less parking. And this could have been it. As we look down Granite, we might have a couple more opportunities to do this. But if we don't start building for that customer that we expect that doesn't need a car, we won't start that conversation with those customers in terms of them driving the market towards better mobility and better transportation options. And that has to happen. This shouldn't have to have 33 parking spaces on site. We should be able to be parking on Granite. We should have units that don't have allocated parking. We should have less parking and more density. And to me, that was the big missed opportunity here. And that might come through in the Granite Street, you know, as a function of that Granite Street, you know, that project. But if we go forward with this, great. If we don't, I don't want to do this again without having less parking for workforce units. And that's just a comment that I've had throughout this process, and I'm sorry we missed that. But so I'm not sure what the next, so there's really no, in terms of direction, it's really, we're good with this project, continue, get to the 80% threshold. We're studio architecture, we're done. Now it's the whatever that process looks like to deliver the housing mix, right? Is that where we're at, or
more or less? Yeah. So the next step is what I'm hearing from council tonight is continue to refine the design, see if we can find a way where we can make it pop a little bit more. And I think there, as Melissa and Andy both pointed out, there have been conflict. Planning Commission really didn't like the white. They were very clear about a concern about white. So there's a balance between different personal aesthetics and opinions on that aesthetic, and the Planning Commission certainly had a big voice in that. The next step here is for us to get together with CDOT as well and begin those negotiations, begin those discussions on what the next steps are. They have told us they plan to have 8 to 10 units. That's what they want to occupy. When we started this process, we said, how many units can we fit? And we wanted to try to maximize that number. And certainly the parking is always a driving factor. Our partners at CDOT did say, you know what, it's very important that we don't underpark this property, because their transit isn't available for their employees that are going to be living here. They need to get up at 4 a.m. when the roads haven't been plowed and get to work so they can plow the roads. So it was very critical to them that there was adequate parking on site. So again, we were balancing the desires of our partners who are the current property owners as well on this approach. So our next steps, we'll get together with them. We'll start working out the fine details. I think they'll probably get to the point where they're getting ready to order an appraisal. So as Thad said, you can get a value for that land and start really putting a fine pencil to some of these numbers and start thinking about budgetary moves for that. So.
Okay, Zach? All right. I would say if there's no other commentary on this, wrap up the work session. Right? And we have to.
But you're just going to
Good to go.
proceed to dinner.
All right, so wrap it up for now, and we'll be back to the meeting. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Don.
Thank you.
Thank you.
On Zoom, I will be turning this off and restarting it again. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
Exactly.
Complete. I should have had Courtney take your dogs too, huh?
God only knows what they've done.
Hello.
We will be unmuting everybody and let you know when public comment is available. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody, for coming. Welcome to July 13th meeting of the Frisco Town Council. Appreciate your attendance. It's great to see some people in the audience. Thank you. We are going to offer the opportunity for public comment. It's always a feature of every meeting. We do have to do a couple little formal pieces of the meeting. And, we'll get into that in just a second, and I'll keep some of the ground rules that we started. I'm Dan Fallon. I'm running the meeting tonight in the absence of our mayor, Adam Morrison, our mayor, Joseph Billy, and Councilmember Richard. Group here that you see tonight, but I promise you have all of our complete questions. Let's see. Before we get going, first on my list is, are there any mayor council comments? Mayor's not here, so any other council comments? Okay. Yep.
Do you want to discuss the vaccination?
Oh.
That's not wrong.
Yeah, so I do, we do want to, thank you, Diane. We do want to let everybody know that the Colorado Department of Public Health will have their vaccination, right? Vaccination bus is going to be on the promenade on Friday and Saturday from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. And just roll up with your sleeves rolled up, you're ready to go. If there's anybody you can cajole and entice to be down there who hasn't availed themselves yet of the opportunity. Do we know what vaccine is it?
Pfizer and J&J.
Pfizer, J&J, there you go.
And available to tourists and locals alike, right?
So, get on the bus. Don't be after that. Get on the bus. Thank you. Anything else? Good. Staff updates I have next. They're included in the packet. You guys all had a chance to look at that. And we are now at a point where the meeting will take public comments. So I do want to make a couple points. Citizens making public comments during public comments or public hearing should state their name, please, your address for the record. be topic specific, limit comments to no longer than 3 minutes, please. So, and to be clear, typically no council action is taken on the public on public comments. Council will take all comments under advisement, and if council response is appropriate, the individual making the comment will receive a formal response from the panel at a later date. I would say too that, be concise. If you are saying the same thing as someone else, you want to amplify those comments, that's great. If you just want to step up and say, I concur. We really do want to hear from you, hear your experience, understand what's going on. And I look forward to hearing from all of you. So public comments open. If whoever wants to come up first.
Make a point for those of you who are on Zoom, if you could use your raise hand function of Zoom, then Councilmember Fallon will see that you're also requesting to comment and he will call your name. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody online right now, or anybody want to come on up and make comments?
Alita, I know you had asked.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, Alita, the floor is yours for 3 minutes.
Are you saying that I'm on the floor? This is Alita.
Yes.
Okay, so my name is Alita Kresge. My address is number 1 Hahn Drive in Frisco, Colorado. I am calling or talking to you tonight about the challenges that we are having, those who are slip holders at the marina, and having challenges with the current marine management. That I am told by that marine management, the town council has directed them in the actions that they're taking. For the record, I sent an email, a rather long and distorted email, if you will, to Andy yesterday, which was a thread of all the things I've had a conversation with both Diane and Hunter about my experience with the new management in this over the last season. As you probably all know, there's a Dyke Island out there that you are there because, quote unquote, the Denver Water Board is telling you that you're going to bring the water down because the water level is so low. In my 40 years, I've been hearing this back and forth, and it's rare that it actually happens. The Dock Island presents all sorts of challenges for us. It does not allow me to use my boat in the way that I have expected to be able to do it when it's attached to land. It is nothing more than a mooring. And if there was any mitigation offered, there has been none offered. Every time I've sent an email, I've had the same answer back, says, nope, we're keeping it the same way, because F3 has told us this is how to do it. I've been sailing all my life. I've not seen this kind of management in any other marina. That's one of the challenges. The other challenge I have is some of the staff that you've hired has minimal experience in running marinas, if any. And some of their procedures have been unsafe. I think you guys are asking for some real challenges because you don't have staff out there, other than the old timers, Sadie, et cetera, who know what they're doing out there. The kids are all really nice, but they're all challenged with knowing what to do. So I would ask that the town council really educate themselves on what F3 is doing and how they're conducting themselves, because it is not conducive. What it feels like to me is that the town council, as F3 blames it on them, or the marina management blames it on you guys, is trying to get every last penny to support the bonds that you guys floated off the back of the slip holders. And it's not like we're getting any better service with this. So that's what my thoughts are. I'd like to know what's going to happen when the kids all leave, the college kids all leave in September, if we're going to have even less service than we have now. So I think you have safety issues out there. I think we have less service with it being on the Dock Island, and then I can't use my boat the way I want to. And I would like the town council to have a much closer look and understanding of what F3 is really doing.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that comment.
You're welcome.
Anybody else want to come up?
And can you guys speak any louder? I can hardly hear you. I am on my phone, but.
Yes, hi, my name's Gary Sonnet. I was a resident up here in Summit County for about 25 years. I now reside in Highlands Ranch. I have had boats at the marina for over 20 years. I have never, in the 20 years that I've been up here with boats, seen the morale as low as it has been this particular summer. And that is both amongst the staff, especially the senior staff, as well as the slip holders. And this all, in my opinion, and I think the opinion of many of my fellow slip holders, the result of F3 coming in, managing ocean marinas and not really being aware of what it is to manage a mountain marina. Also, just to kind of concur with the leader, they hired a manager who has had relatively or no experience in running a marina. This individual, from what I understand, has had experience on cruise lines and was a raft guide up in Alaska. So all the issues that we're speaking about tonight, in my opinion, again, has been a result of F3 as well as the manager. In terms of the inconveniences that we face out on Dock Island, this stems from one shuttle service. Okay, on average, you could wait a half hour for a shuttle to pick you up and bring you back to shore. Number two, there are issues obviously with bathroom facilities. Men don't have so much of a problem as women do out there. But again, in order to use a bathroom, we have to get a shuttle to come back. As well as many of our slip holders use the town, like to come in, have dinner at the various restaurants. We're limited, again, because of the timing of the shuttle service. So this is lost income to the town. As far as cost is concerned, it was interesting that as F3 came in, our boats are now being measured by the inch. By the inch, okay, which is just totally absurd. I've done a lot of research on Google. Industry standard is normally either A, to measure by the foot, okay, or to measure the length of the slip, but not to measure by the inch. Average cost, okay, of slip fees normally runs about $20 a foot. We've seen increases anywhere upwards to 30%, okay? As well as typically when boats are measured, there's not included various attachments such as outboard engines, swim platforms, etc. Parking issues.
And I'm just to let you know, you just start to wrap it up. You're at about 3.
Not
Okay.
a problem, Dan.
All right.
Parking issues, this has been an issue for years. We pay good money to be out there. And if you do not have your car in there by 8, 9 o'clock in the morning, you just simply cannot find a spot. Okay. If you're lucky, and then if you have to go out to Walmart, you've lost your spot. So I think that the council really has to take a hard look at the issues that we're facing out there. And I think at the same time, we definitely deserve some compensation.
Thank you. Thank you, Gary. Appreciate that.
Hi, my name's Lynette Hampton. I reside at 370 Darby Drive in Silverthorne. And my husband and I have had a boat in the Frisco Marina for, this is our 11th season. And, you know, it has been the joy. It's like what we look forward to every summer. It is the most important thing. We have our friends, we do the things that we love. It has been very, very important. The last couple of years have been a little rough, this year in particular. So I think that what I'm here to ask is, we are effectively on Dock Island with a full lake, which means we are effectively being treated as a mooring ball. We've been given the opportunity to have a $50 off if we bring in a dinghy so that we can take ourselves out to our boats. But in order to do that, we'd have to spend $2,000 to buy a dinghy. So it doesn't really, it's not giving us anything. It's really not right. But we keep being told what great news that is, that we get $50 off for the year. So what I'm here to ask is that the council consider giving us mooring ball rates, because that is effectively what we are. We have none of the amenities that we pay the additional fees for, to be able to walk down to our boat, to be able to come and go, to be able to have access to bathrooms, to be able to bring our dogs, to be able to run into town when we want. So that's one thing I'm looking for. The other thing I'm looking for is Gary started to mention the parking. So my husband and I come down on Sunday noon. We're lucky to find a place to park out by the farmer's market, the farm stand. We go at noon to the Island Grill. Half the tables are empty. Beach is full, lots of people out on bicycles. But on the way over there, we have the storage, the trailer storage that easily could hold 20 or 30 cars. We used to be able to park along the fence line leading into the yard, as long as we didn't block the yard itself, the entrance and exit there. That is all now blocked off. That's another probably 10, 12 cars that would fit there. So the parking has become enormous, while people are actually hanging out at the beach, not spending money either at the Island Grill or in town, while we, for decades, have been supporting the marina and the town and the restaurants. And so we're looking to see if that can, and we've been talking about parking for years now with anybody who will listen. And so I think that those are my two asks. That's hopefully I'm within my 3 minutes.
You did a great job. Thank you very much. And well stated. We appreciate it.
We've got another speaker online who would like to speak.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. My name is Paul Calazan. I am not a resident of Summit County or Frisco. I'm in Golden. I have, however, maintained a slip in Frisco for the last 6 years. I have 2 children, 8 and 9, who enjoy their summers immensely. And I just want to echo what's been said thus far about the inconvenience of a slip holder. I spend about $6,000 a year on boat storage, wrapping, and the slip fees. In addition to that, we spend about $100 to $120 every time we go out for a meal for the 4 of us. Limiting us with shuttle times, shuttle services, really limits when we can go into town, when we can come back into town. So I just want to have commissioners just be cognizant of the revenue that we're not only generating as part of storage as slip holders, but also for the town by the repeated meals, and this inconvenience does not, just precludes us from spending that money. My concern is also the space in which our slips would normally reside are now being occupied by rental space, right? Rental kayaks. It would be different if it was all slips or none of the slips, right? Based on water levels. Right now, the priority seems to be rentals, right? Which the people that have been long-term slip holders are just being treated as a number, right? We know that there's a demand for slips, and it doesn't give us the leverage that we need to perhaps negotiate lower fees based on the fact that we're on Dock Island, right? Because they know there are 30, 40, 50 other people that will be more than happy to pay those slip fees if we do not pay that slip fee. Okay. So it's just the sense that we get there is that the rental revenue far surpasses the loyalty and the money that we spend on an annual basis for those slips, boat maintenance, boat storage, what have you. I appreciate your time. That's really all I want to just echo and bring forth. And I do hope you take this into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate your comments. Sure. This is your time. Take all the 3 minutes you need.
My name's Liz Ritchie. I'm here with my husband, Frank. We're at 162 County Road 1042, previously at Mountainside for a number of years. We have 2 slips, and we've had 2 slips for many, many, many years. And I want to reinforce and underscore the points you're hearing, but I want to maybe give you a new frame to hear it through. It's not the season anyone would have wanted certainly. But we think it's important, given the attempts we've made to talk with staff, with marina management, with F3, they've been present. All of us have made an attempt to share these thoughts, these implications, but we're not sure that it's actually getting shared with you. And so we're here tonight to share you firsthand some of our experiences and what we think would be fair consideration. To summarize what some of the people have said in a nutshell is the report F3 provided to town, many of the provisions adopted. And you may be hearing glowing reports of increasing revenue rates and usage and that sort of thing. From our standpoint, gave us nothing. In fact, gave us less than nothing because we're actually paying more. Rates went up across the board and we're getting less because we're on Dock Island. And that brings me to the point that I really, really want to ask you to reframe your thinking. There was a choice made at the beginning of the season. A choice was made by the managers and by F3. And I don't want us to kid ourselves. I'm going to tell you something that neither marina staff nor F3 will tell you because it's not in their best interest. To put it politely, the marina managers got misled. Okay, you could say taken for a ride. You can say had the wool pulled over their eyes, a fast one. But there was a choice made on when to put the docks in and where. So let's think about that for a minute. The docks could have been placed in their normal positions on day one. They could be there right now. And then if conditions warranted, they could have been moved out to Dock Island. That's happened in years past, and every single one of us understands that. We don't control the water levels. This isn't about Denver water. This is about what could have been possible to alleviate all of the frustration that you've heard and many on town staff and the managers have heard. When they say, boy, this is a spun up group of boaters, it probably is. But think about it, there was a choice made. And then that brings us to the idea of some form of rebate or compensation because that choice was taken without our input.
Just want to let you know, yeah, I do value what you're here to say, but you're at 3 minutes right now.
I ask you, thank you for telling me that, Dan. Have any of you had a chance to read the contract that we as slip holders would have signed with the marina? You can take a look at it. There are two important things in there. One is a provision that says, hey, in the event there are conditions that warrant, the marina reserves the right to move the slip location. We got that. Accept it, understand it. However, it also has a provision that says fee adjustments may be made at the discretion of the town based on the result of those conditions. So there was some contemplation that in the event conditions warranted, there would be a fee adjustment. That would go such a long way to alleviating a lot of the issues, the specifics. So thank you for indulging me.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
With our last comment.
All right. Yes.
There may be another speaker on the through a phone ending in 604 that may want to speak. They've unmuted several times. Yep.
Hello, this is Deanna. Are you speaking to me?
Yes, we are. Thank you.
Thank you, Deanna. Could you state your full name and address, and then you have the floor.
You are welcome. Thank you guys for allowing us to chat. I'm also, not surprisingly, going to be speaking as a slip holder. My name is Deanna Walkus. My address is P.O. Box 4624, Breckenridge, Colorado. And the topic, I'm kind of going to hone in on one topic, but you guys may remember I spoke for a few minutes a year ago regarding the gross neglect of the bathrooms last year. I do want to thank you at the marina. I do want to thank you for adding bathrooms. It's been very helpful. And some of the employees you've hired this year are super, super friendly. But these other people who have spoken, honestly, I don't even know. So I am very pleasantly surprised that we're all on here tonight. So we have made a little bit of progress from last year, but we still have a long way to go. And again, specifically tonight, I want to talk about Dock Island. Just a few concepts. You know, early in the spring, the marina staff they're maniacs in getting us to pay our summer rates, and they're very financially aggressive, trying to get us to pay. And so when we pay in the spring, you know, we're paying for certain expected services. I won't repeat what else has been stated. So, but the list of services, you know, the convenience of walking and biking to the docks and the boats 24/7, marina bathrooms, trash, the weather protection of being in the bay, security at the docks by shore, the convenient medical services if they're needed, the fire protection from this god-awful fire suppression system that got put into Dock Island last year. So at Dock Island, we have no 24/7 access to our boats, no fire suppression system out there. That should be a violation. No ADA, no disability access at Dock Island. We are basically in the middle of the lake with the no wake zone. The no wake zone is useless for us at Dock Island. There's no trash cans, like Louise said, we're going to be there. Again, there's no bathrooms. No bathrooms for humans, let alone dogs. People are having to kayak their dogs over to land to get them to go to the bathroom. There's no security. I've had a couple things stolen off my kayak on D-Dock. There's no separate dinghy dock. Many things that we've brought up, like you guys talking to the sheriff's office, nope, you wouldn't have brought that up unless we told Louise about medical services out there. So basically, I'm in agreement with everybody else that there needs to be some type of a refund, because we paid for these services, but we're not getting them. And when you did send us, or Louise sent us the email about the two options, folks, that's just a slap in the face, a slap in the face. It is totally in the town of Frisco or the marina's self-interest to say, you can get a partial refund and then you have to store your boat here instead of somewhere else where we might want to store it. Or you can get a full refund and you lose your entire slip. Total embarrassment options for the town of Frisco. It is beyond awful customer service of how you are treating the slip holders. So we need a refund. I'm also asking for you to set up an advisory board and include a few of us slip holders, because we want to help you. We don't want to be your enemy, but we want to help. And we've also been told several times from your shuttle boat drivers that they have been told this marina is for rentals. Don't worry if the slip holders complain. We only get 10% of our money from them. So it's pretty clear there is a customer service problem between the town of Frisco, the marina staff, and goodness gracious, I won't even get into that now, but it is a nightmare at that marina in all different ways. So I thank you so much for listening, and I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your comments.
You're welcome. We've got one more slip holder here who would like his 3 minutes. Thank you.
All right, we have somebody at the podium right now, so we'll get back to you.
My name is David Sharman. I've lived in Summit County since 1980. I lived in Frisco for quite a while, but my address is 878 Idlewild Drive, Dillon, Colorado, in Summit Cove. All the concerns everybody's voiced, I talked to Dan for quite a while. I can't take 3 minutes and explain what's going on, but I think it's a very, Diane actually listened, it was not confrontational. Dan listened, it was not confrontational. Everyone else I've talked to, it has been a debate team. And when I went in and talked to two people and Luis and the lack of leadership in our marina is ridiculous. And when you look at the Dillon Marina and the trials that they've been through, they don't have the water issues we have. I understand that, but they've lost a lot of key personnel. You go over there, you feel like you are valued. You feel like they want to help you. I sail over there. I've been over there a lot more lately because my nephew's on the junior sailing. There's going to be on the junior Olympic sailing team. I crew on a J24 over there. The experience is night and day. With the lack of slips and the abundance of people wanting them, we have become a number. And there is absolutely, we're so replaceable. And my question is, what is Frisco Marina's mission statement? I understand what a government enterprise is, that it's not tax funded. I looked at the budget. You had $50,000 left over to give to employees last year that was not used. The way that the money's being spent, the things that are being done, the way that it's just seems to be penny pinching us for the industry standard for measuring boats. Dylan, if your boat is, if your boat is 20 feet and a half, they round it down to 20. They round it down to 20. This is customer service. This is valuing your customers. This is showing appreciation. I'm getting the same slip no matter how long my boat is. I was fed up. I came in, I asked for my refund. I was told, okay, let's sit down and figure out what you get. I paid $2,200. They said, well, after you, and I read the email, it is fairly vague. I can see both sides of it, but I thought if I came in, asked for my slip to be pushed to next year, I'd get my $2,200 back. They said, oh no, you have to use our dry storage. Because I've always stored my boat on my property. I've never used your dry storage. They said, well, we're going to give you $600 and some odd dollars back and charge you $1,600 to hold your slip and give you 0 services. I'm being held hostage for my slip. So I came in late in the game, said, I want my money back and I'll take my slip next year because I'm a sailor. I sold my company up here. I bought a sailboat. We sailed for 3 months and homeschooled my daughter. It's part of my life. And I'm willing to give up my slip now in Frisco and put my name on Dylan's list because you guys are doing such a poor job. And every single concern that I voiced to you guys. I'd love to sit down and talk to any one of you in depth and explain to you exactly what's $200 fee to tow my boat back to the docks. If I have it there at 8 in the evening because I missed a shuttle or because I wanted to go see the concert in Dillon, they're going to charge me $200 if my boat is on the dock stored over past 8 a.m. in the morning. $200. Are you kidding me? To tow my boat back to, my frustration is just outrageous. And then, I mean, I just feel like the town of Dillon has set the bar pretty high. And you guys have set the bar very, very low. And it used to be everybody from Dillon was coming here. And they've had their challenges. And I understand what it takes to an enterprise. You know, you guys, the marina is responsible for supporting itself. If we can't afford to support what we're trying to do, then don't do it. Let's make it an enjoyable facility that all of us can come and enjoy instead of all that you hear on the docks is bitching. The employees aren't happy. No, I mean.
Hey, Dave, just so you know, we're a little over 4 minutes. So you want to sum it up or
My sum up is I'm just very disappointed. And if I lose my slip over this, nobody can come. I'm not getting any compensation back and I lose my slip because I won't put up with being treated the way that I feel is inappropriate and that my business is not desired. My business was customer service. I did a damn good job of it. I hope you guys can. Please don't disappoint me.
Thank you. Anybody else? Is there someone online still?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Just your name and address, please, and you have the floor. Thanks.
My name is Ken Hicks, P.O. Box 7399, Breckenridge, Colorado. We are on Dock Island, D-Dock. I put my sailboat in Dillon Reservoir started in 1882. I had a commercial charter sailboat business on Lake Dillon. I taught sailing on the lake for many years. In the latter years, I taught through Colorado Mountain College. If the town refuses to move Dock Island, at least email all slip holders the actual information from Denver Water as to why you won't move slips. If you're saying they're going to drain the water, show us the documentation. No acceptable communication from the marina. If the town refuses to move slips, then extend the shuttle hours till 11 p.m. 7 days a week. That is one employee, an additional 28 hours. I don't want to hear the excuse of lack of manpower. As the other gentleman said, we both have owned companies in Summit County. I've mine since the mid-70s. Hire employees as you need them. Don't use crap as an excuse. Unacceptable. Told we could buy a dinghy to shuttle ourselves. Unacceptable. When we asked where the dinghy dock location was at Dock Island, we were told that there was none. Unacceptable. Town of Frisco purchased a huge fire suppression system. I have repeatedly asked for the actual NFPA requirement for that extensive of a system. No response? Unacceptable. If fire suppression is required to protect our boats, where is the fire suppression system at Dock Island? Unacceptable. We were told by Marina Management last year that there were security cameras that overlooked our boats. I have been unable to see cameras at Dock Island. Where are they? Also, no security at Dock Island. Unacceptable. What if there was a medical emergency at Dock Island after the shuttle stops? What is the estimated response time? What number of responders will show up? What is their experience and what equipment would they bring? No acceptable answer given. No wake zone. I would like someone in your marina management staff to explain their location. Totally unacceptable. Luna Lake, AKA the cesspool at boat ramp. Health hazard and embarrassment to the town and the marina. Unacceptable. Who is the certified instructor and what certification to instruct and certify your commercial passenger carrying boat captains? Most appear to have never operated a commercial passenger vessel before. Liability, huge. Unacceptable. Because you have no access to land, you have put slip holders at risk because you have not provided emergency egress in case of an emergency. Unacceptable. Since the town of Frisco is trying to go so green, why is it the solar wind system at the marina is still not working? Diane McBride, assistant town manager, told me last year that they have not worked for at least 6 years. Let me repeat, 6 years. Totally unacceptable. The fueling system that you have to provide gas to the rental boats, totally unsafe, totally unacceptable. OSHA would have a field day with you guys.
Hey, Ken,
I would request, yes?
I'm sorry to interrupt, sir. We're just pushing 4 minutes, and if you could sum it up, we have some other people who would like to speak.
Sure, very quickly, on the last thing. I would request an answer and solution to these items. Diane McBride has my contact information and would like a response. Thank you all for listening to me.
Thank you, Ken. Appreciate the comments.
Frank Ritchie, I live at 162 County Road 1042. My wife Liz has spoken. I don't want to reiterate anything that anybody said. I do want to submit to you people that the last speaker, in our opinion, got this whole thing started. Invited basically C3 or P3, whatever they are, to come in. He does not live here. He lives in Florida. He's a resident of Florida. He's a freeloader, in our opinion. He parks his van down at the marina and stays there overtime a lot. And he's rubbed people he's rubbed people the wrong way a lot of the times. So you should strike his conversation.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And is there anybody else who wants to make a comment?
Yeah, who was that last person?
Would you like to continue?
Yeah, so you can follow up with town staff later and certainly probably get a list of the contributors in the public comment. Direct your queries to staff. You can get a hold of Diane and she can give you some information on who spoke. Anybody else? Oh, well, thank you.
Thank you. We do appreciate your time. We do want things to be right.
And
We believe in the town of Frisco. You guys can do this.
we appreciate the confidence, the vote of confidence.
We appreciate the confidence, and this truly makes a difference. You know, you guys coming to us and telling us, you know, we have things seem to be out of control, and this is going to be priority top 3 for us.
Go ahead. We were going to approve a contract on the new town manager tonight.
That's
So-
what,
Did they get a new town manager?
we will see.
Well,
To be determined, but really it makes a difference. And, you know, you guys can find me on Main Street most days and, you know, don't hesitate. I personally want to hear it when I'm out in town.
One quick question, when can we expect some type of response or communication?
As an official response,
yeah, you know, so Gary, it's hard for me to get in front of the process that really needs to be created to really address this comprehensive list of issues. And I don't want to, you know, give you some false promise about, all I could tell you is that this council is, and I don't want to speak out of turn, because I'm pretty sure I speak for everybody. This council is committed to restoring your confidence in the staff, in the brand of the town. You know, I've been in the small business here since the early 90s. I built my brand on customer service. I can recognize when there's an egregious lapse. And I think the question right now is, you know, bring the management teams together and to start to identify the ways to create that, to find those resolutions. You know, I think there's not gonna be a problem identifying the issues. I think you've done a wonderful job of doing that tonight. You certainly demonstrated your passion for sailing, for the Frisco Marina, your commitment to this community, and we appreciate all those things. And what we can do as council is make sure that staff is charged with evolving that process to begin to put this back together and meet your expectations down there. I don't want to get in front of a process because I can't tell you how long. We have a town manager who'll be starting the first week of August, but Diane is here. She's the acting town manager, and she's certainly aware. I'm available. Dave, you got a hold of me, and feel free to share my number.
The only thing I would like to say, I really appreciate everybody stepping forward and giving the thoughts, and you've been heard, but please treat the staff. The last person who spoke on the hire more people. Well, we all know that's not an option in the current environment. So please, just the staff, the folks who are driving the shuttle, they're working hard. It is a ridiculously chaotic world to work there on a good year. So please just treat them nicely, create the happy environment. And that's why I just want to make sure it's. Thank you.
My kids are friends with, you hired a bunch of high school kids. They're my kids in senior high school.
Yeah, my kid's working on the docks. So guys, thanks.
One last question. Before tonight, did you guys recognize?
Come on, we can't get you. You have to come into the microphone.
If you don't mind, just so we can.
No, but we need to be, it's all recorded, so. Yeah, so please, guys, make this.
Before this evening, were you aware of what was going on down at the marina?
Okay, so I appreciate the question. I can't speak for everybody, and we're not going to get into that conversation right now.
You said that you didn't know what was going on down.
I've been coming up to speed. This has been a huge help. There's more discovery. So we'll get into this later. I'm happy to follow up with you after the meeting. I can happy to have this conversation with you. Just not going to have it here now. Okay, but I appreciate that. All right, sir, can we have to disengage right now. Thank you. I appreciate it. And I understand. So thank you. We appreciate it. Thanks for coming. And
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is my contact and
Please.
basically notes of what I have.
Yeah, thank you.
And
Thank you.
I would be, okay, I have a very personal decision coming up tomorrow. I asked for an extension to whether I was going to give up my slip or not. And I'm that frustrated. My name's in over in Dillon, but I don't want to go to Dillon. I like the town of Frisco. I like what's going on here. I've been pressured to, I want to get any money at $600 and some odd dollars back, instead of my $2,200 back. And I sent an email requesting an extension till after this meeting. Can you guys please give me an answer as to what you're going to do before I have to make my decision?
David, at the very least, I will reach out to you personally. We'll have a discussion and we can
Right, what I
talk
asked for
about.
was till 12 o'clock tomorrow, and that's an extension from this Saturday. I emailed Luis and I emailed Jen and I haven't heard back whether they even extended it, but
I'll give you a call tomorrow.
I appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Hey, I'm part of this community. I know this is not easy.
Voting is supposed to be fun.
Sorry.
All right,
No, thank you.
thank you for coming in tonight. We appreciate it.
And thank you guys for listening. You answered your phone on Saturday. Come on, man, that says a lot.
Thank you.
No, I'm serious. I mean, Diane called me back. I traveled for a long time. I was very upset. And that's the first time I've had anybody actually listen. Have a great
Thank you.
night.
Cheers. Thank you.
You should give that to Deborah.
Yeah, I'm gonna give that to Deborah. Moving on.
There might be other public comment.
Oh, is
for
there,
other
I'm sorry,
items.
before we close public comment, is there anybody else online who has not spoken? Who has something new to offer and is not necessarily reiterating the commentary that we have, which has been quite complete and comprehensive. Anybody?
No hands have been raised, but I just wanted to make sure audience had an opportunity if they were here for something else.
Thank you. Thank you, Deb. Appreciate it. All right, we'll be closing public comment then at this point with no takers and returning to the regular meeting. And I believe we are at the consent agenda. Is there a motion regarding the consent agenda?
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second. Moved by Councilman Sherburne, seconded by Councilmember Aronson. We gonna call the roll on that?
Mortensen, absent. Aronson.
Yes.
Burley, absent. Fallon,
Yes.
Held. Incan, absent. Sherburne.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Consent agenda is carried. And we'll start with on the revised agenda, agenda item 1, which is the consideration and possible approval of the town manager employment agreement. And so we're now going to open the public hearing for agenda item number 1, consideration and possible approval of the town manager employment agreement. Town Attorney Thad Renau will now make the report.
Thank you, Councilor Fallon. You have in front of you, sorry, I'll move to the microphone here. You have in front of you a draft town manager employment agreement with Mr. Tony O'Rourke. It has been prepared per council's direction to Nancy Carey as your negotiator with Mr. O'Rourke after recent interviews in executive session. The form of agreement is nearly identical to the form of agreement that the town had with the prior manager, Nancy Carey, with the exception of some, what I would describe as very minor differences relative to moving reimbursements for moving expense, both in amount and nature of those expenses, and then some fairly minor changes as well to benefits as they relate to the amount of time placed in the bank, so to speak, of vacation time as Mr. O'Rourke comes in the door. Other than that, as I say, this agreement is nearly identical to that this council, I think, has seen 1 or 2 times before, and I'm happy to answer any questions about it.
Questions for Thad? Thank you, Thad. Appreciate that. We're going to take public comment now on the agenda item number 1, which is the possible approval of the town manager employment agreement. Is there anybody who wants to step up and make a comment? Not seeing anybody leaping. We're going to close public comment and council discussion.
The only thing, well, no, I'm not sure what the appropriate time is, but we have 3 council people out, all of which have sent word that they are in favor of this. So it is, assuming the 4 of us vote, as I think we will. I just want to have that be.
Okay, that's good to know. Yeah, wasn't privy to that, so thank you very much. And certainly makes it a little bit easier. Any other council comment? We'll close council comment and return to possibly a motion.
I move that we approve agenda item 1, I move that we approve agenda item 1, approving the new town manager contract.
We have motion been made by Councilmember Aronson to approve the contract for the town manager, which is agenda item number 1, and seconded by is it Andy, Councilmember Held. And could you call the vote, please?
Aronson.
Yes.
Burley, absent. Fallon.
Yes.
Held. Incan, absent. Sherburne. Mortensen, absent.
And the motion carries. Agenda item number 1. We've approved the contract for the new town manager. And we are, I think, speaking for council for sure, we're excited to work with Tony O'Rourke. Right? And look forward to his arrival on scene. And any guys have comment on that?
I think
No?
you said, I'm excited to
Okay.
have him here.
Okay.
He's, he has all the makings of being a great town manager and a great manager to us, to staff, and to the community.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to old business. This is agenda item number 2. We're going to open the public hearing now for agenda item number 2, second reading of ordinance 21-07, an ordinance amending chapter 65 of the Code of Ordinances of the Town of Frisco, Colorado, concerning building construction and housing standards by amending section 65-1, concerning standards adopted by reference to adopt by reference the NFPA 70 National Electric Code 2020 edition, and to provide penalties for the violation thereof. Building official Rick Weinman. Oh, there he is. I'll make the report. Thank you, Rick.
Good evening, council. As stated, this is the second reading for ordinance 21-07, which is an ordinance to update the town's construction codes to the latest published edition of NFPA 70, which is the 2020 National Electrical Code. And adoption of this ordinance would bring the town's codes up to date and consistent with Colorado revised statutes, and also the county, Summit County building departments codes who do enforcement for the town. There were no amendments proposed for this code, and first reading was approved on June 8th, 2021. And staff does recommend that council approve ordinance 21-07 on second reading.
Okay. We're going to open, thank you, Rick, appreciate that. And we're going to open the agenda item up for public comment right now. Is there any public comment on agenda item number 2? Not seeing any public comment. We're going to close public comment. And is there open up for council discussion? Any questions for Rick?
No,
No?
you have to be up to date.
Okay. I think that's it. Can we see if there's a motion on this agenda item?
I'll move that we approve on second reading ordinance 21-07, adoption of the NFPA 2020.
So Councilmember Sherburne moved to approve ordinance 21-07, an ordinance amending chapter 65 of the Code of Ordinances. This is agenda item number 2. Chad, should I read the whole restate?
No, it only needs to be done once.
Okay, great. Seconded by, pick one, Andy, but by an Andy, Councilmember Andy. And could you call the vote, please?
Certainly. Burley, absent. Fallon.
Yes.
Held.
Yes.
Incan, absent. Sherburne.
Yes.
Mortensen, absent. Aronson.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Moving on to agenda item number 3. We're now open for public hearing. Agenda item number 3, second reading ordinance 21-08, an ordinance amending chapter 142 of the Code of Ordinances of the Town of Frisco concerning the vacation of public property by amending sections, I did that part, all right. By amending sections 142-6 concerning the valuation of vacated property, and 142-13 concerning the vesting of title upon vacation. And to give the report, Community Development Director, it's not Bill Gibson, according to my notes, but will be Don Reimer.
Good evening, council. Thank you for that. This is the second reading of an ordinance to amend chapter 142, which is related to vacation of property. Vacation meaning when we are divesting town interest in a town-owned property. In most cases, this refers to public rights of ways or portions of public rights of ways. The primary purpose of this is to do some minor clarifications to the timing of a couple of things, specifically when appraisals occur, so that those appraisals are able to be valued and properly considered early in the review process. And then secondly, to clarify that to whom a property is vested once it's vacated and how it will be zoned. Those are the two very minor changes, and I'm able to take any questions. Staff does recommend approval of ordinance 21-08 on second reading.
Thanks, Don. And we're going to open now for public comments. Jim? Just, okay, just checking to make sure you're awake. Okay, good. All right. All right, no public comment. We're going to close public comment and go to council discussion or questions. Anything for Don? Sounds like we're good. We're going to close council discussion and see if there's a motion to approve.
If I can get to it, I'll make the motion. Unless somebody else has it in front of them.
To make a motion on the second reading of ordinance 21-08, an ordinance amending chapter 142. Do I have to read the entire thing? Okay.
A second.
Motion to approve has been made by Councilman Held, seconded by Councilman Andrew Aronson for ordinance 2108 being approved on second reading. Can you call the vote, please?
Certainly. Fallon,
Yes.
Held,
Yes.
Incan, absent, Sherburne, Mortensen, absent, Aronson,
Yes.
Burley, absent.
Carries, motion carries. Thank you, Don. Appreciate it. Thank you, Eva. The fourth agenda item is a standing agendized item that used to be the COVID conversation, and now we're setting aside time to have an open conversation about housing in Frisco. There's a staff update associated with this. And is that, Diane, is that you?
Yeah, I can start this for sure. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And to be clear, at least one council member certainly has some issues they want to bring up. So if you don't mind, thank you. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, thank you very much. The staff report that was in your council packet was prepared by the interim town manager, Jeff Durbin, with the help here, of course, of both members of our community development department. There are indeed some staff recommendations at the end that I think council has had the opportunity to discuss previous to this meeting. So, and some of those, I think we have already some direction on those in terms of pursuing or not pursuing. So I just wanted to, I guess, kind of start this conversation by saying, one, of course, we will do the update tonight. Both Don and Eva here are prepared to do that and answer any questions that you might have. But one of the things we would actually suggest as well is that we hit pause here for just a little bit. There's some things we know we want to continue to do, but also hit pause until our new town manager has the opportunity to come on board, which is only a couple weeks away. I think that we will, obviously this is a top priority. Staff will continue to work on all these issues, but I think that with our new town manager's help, we'll continue to do this in a little bit of a different format. So that was my only intro there, and if that's okay, I'll turn it over now to Don.
So the purpose, the main reason that we would like to just go over real quick is follow up and update on some of the items that council gave direction to staff on at the last meeting. A few of those items, and these are all listed out in staff report. I'll just get those into the record. We have issued an RFP for property management for town-owned properties to make ourselves a little bit more efficient and effective in how we manage those. So that should be going out, or that is out, and we should hopefully have bids for that by July 29th and bring those back to council sometime in August. STR Software, we're continuing to work with Host Compliance, who is a third-party vendor on improvements to that system, and remain optimistic that we'll be able to come to some better resolution on how that system works. And if we are unable to, at that point, we will continue to or we will pursue a potential addition, other vendor for that program. Lake Hill, there is 2 items. There's an executive session currently scheduled. Is that still scheduled for this evening? For tonight, and then we also have a joint meeting between the town council and the Board of County Commissioners for an update on the Lake Hill project, scheduled for the work session at 4 o'clock on June 27th. I'm sorry, July 27th. I missed it by a week or 2. Housing Helps. So we have made some progress on the Housing Helps 2.0 program, and we're happy to report that we've received our first application under that program, which would be a buy down or a purchase of a deed restriction on an existing owned unit. So we're going to pursue that, and certainly we'll keep you updated on that progress. STR specialist, we have announced, or we've published the job description and are looking for applicants for that position. And so hopefully we will have a new STR specialist on board to help with that program here in the next month or so. The last one I would really want to talk about tonight is probably the STR license fees. Staff gave fairly clear direction at the last council meeting that we need to, as soon as possible, update our fees to at least cover the cost of the program. And as our town attorney has thoroughly described, any program fee can only cover the cost of the program. It's not to be revenue generation or anything like that. So it is a program-based fees. With the help of our finance director, we have taken a look at the current costs of the program and identified what that fee is. Our analysis shows that a license fee of $250 would be appropriate to cover and fully cover all program costs. Our recommendation would, if council consents and concurs, would be to implement that fee as of August 1st of 2021, following some communication to the public about this fee change. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions on any of the above items or anything else you may want to discuss.
Thank you. Questions for Don or Eva?
What's the current STR fee?
It's currently $125, and it's been set at that rate since 2018.
Is there a reason I assume we're going to be asked to pass the increased fee tonight, or do we need to be involved in that?
It's actually per the code, and it is administrative adjustment that can be made by staff in order to cover those program costs.
Why wait till August 1st and give people a window to apply at the lower rate?
Sure. After discussion with amongst staff, we did feel that would be appropriate to give the public a heads up on that and an opportunity. At the same time, we are not anticipating a large rush of applications as a result of this. We have all of 537 applications, I believe, have been renewed so far. We're not anticipating a large rush just as a result of this fee change.
Are you still seeing 11 or 12 new applications a week?
Per month.
Per month?
We're seeing an average of about 20 a month.
Okay.
So that's still happening. And I think some of that's, changeover in hands when sales are occurring. And it may or may not have been an STR prior, but the new owner's wanting to rent. So we are still seeing that volume.
600 times 250 is 150,000 in fees. That covers the new specialist and software and what else have you lumped together to get to that?
So we have a summary of this. So the short-term rental specialist, some time allocated to the revenue specialist that does tax reporting audits, the software contract, also some for compliance and complaints, as well as oversight from finance department and community development department and EVA, the housing coordinator.
Okay.
And again, these are numbers that are reflected of the current program as it stands today, and with the addition of that STR specialist position, certainly we do have the opportunity and I think the responsibility to continually evaluate those program costs to make sure that the fee is appropriate for the service that's being provided.
Maybe it's a testament to your efficiency that $150,000 will get it done. I just thought that was low. But, all right. Any other questions in terms of the staff report, or is there, because
and, you know, in terms of action, I'm gonna say that I think we still should implement a moratorium on STR licenses in order to give us the wherewithal to figure out where everything else is at along with it. You know, we still need to, it would be great to do a cost benefit analysis of, you know, STRs and figure out how we balance, you know, this vital model that's part of our thing, but we're rolling along and we're getting more. And, you know, before we raise the fee, I'm suggesting that we apply the moratorium for, you know, for, I guess 3 months seems to be a low number, but I could even say, you know, a month. I think we could work it out. We could stop the ship for a second, because instead of like blowing forward, stop for a second, we can think about what we're doing. And then when we get our new town manager on, we could come up with a plan to move forward. And in the meantime, it would give, you know, some of our key components the wherewithal to be able to visit many other issues that we're not even able to touch on pertaining to this. So with that, can I say that I would like to see this go to a vote, and or does this have to like come on you know, an agenda or something? Does this have to be
Moratorium at a
agendized?
minimum would require an emergency ordinance, which would take a single reading at a regular meeting. You don't have that ordinance in front of you today, and I couldn't prepare it in the next hour if you wanted it. So
Next meeting or
a special meeting.
or
some
a
meeting of
special
the
meeting.
council.
And I would want, that's something I think everybody needs to be on record for, you know, and I can't speak for anybody else. I certainly supported it last meeting. I supported it as well. I think continue to hone our expectations in terms of the outcome, you know, and make sure that it's very targeted and the expectations are set in terms of what we're trying to accomplish by it. If it's rebalancing, it's understanding that the nexus between short-term rentals and lack of capacity right now, and you know, that which is appropriate to support the moratorium foundationally, legally, want to make sure that that's all part of that declaration. Now, the emergency declaration.
It would be an emergency ordinance.
Oh.
You don't need a study to support the emergency ordinance, right?
Right.
The nature of the emergency is, or the nature of the moratorium is to preserve the status quo while you engage in study or the like and consider regulations. So you don't need a study in advance of it, but you do need an ordinance with at least one reading if it's emergency ordinance, and an emergency ordinance will require a vote of 5 of 7 votes. A simple majority will not pass that ordinance. Just so you're aware of the politics.
I agree. I mean, I think that I'm open to considering it. I think it's, at this point, with how many STRs we have, you know, putting, you know, delaying like 10 or 20 or 30, I mean, it seems like I'd like us to come to some solution, some longer term solutions more quickly. And so I don't want to, that's my hesitation, but I'll save that for our full discussion. I mean, I'm open to it, but I just don't know that it really solves anything. And I most definitely would want our full council, if it had any chance of passing, we would need everybody here. So I guess let's consider it. I mean, right?
Well, you know, if we are in
It's,
agreement, let's consider it and put it on the next.
For discussion.
Put it on the next agenda. or something like that. You know, I do disagree, if I may, just in the part of to stop 20 new or 40, 60 new applications from coming in would allow our specialists to get on board, would allow our housing specialist to coordinate or to focus on other housing issues. And it would also allow us to raise the fees and then not let anybody jump in, because, you know, as we're going to raise the fees and you're going to have a month before, what if we get inundated with another 30? And then that's also on staff. So that's where I'm coming from. And I appreciate us at least moving the ball.
Even, I think you said that, or Don, you referenced that we're about 570 licenses and
So,
And-
yeah. I
and
did
has been as
clarify
high
that.
as,
So the 567 are folks that have had a current STR license and properly renewed and were approved. We have had over 60 licenses apply since March to today. So over that course of time, so we're sitting at about 615 licenses today, because we're still accepting applications as we were doing the renewal cycle.
So it's, yeah.
So that's kind of just to clarify that.
In terms of process, just to really be clear, in order to draft an emergency ordinance, we would, at our next meeting, have to direct you to do so, then pass it at the next meeting. So the earliest this could happen would be the first meeting in August, logistically.
Oh, you're saying you would want the whole council here to direct me and then come back.
I think it's okay for one person, who's not here, but it's not like we're gonna direct you tonight to draft
Gotcha.
the ordinance. I'm not-
So yes, I think your timeline is right then. If you want the full council to pass and give the direction, then that's the next meeting. And there could be an ordinance available the meeting after that, or at a special meeting held for that purpose.
and I support it. I think at some point you're full, you know, and you recognize the imbalance that's going on right now in terms of housing capacity. And you could assign that to any number of variables, but I think it's pretty clear that most people have a notion that there's, and arguably very supportable, that there's that direct link between, of course, STRs and a lack of housing capacity, the proliferation of STRs. So I have no problem saying at some point, we're full, we're done. We have to stop for a minute. We have to start figuring out how to restore the balance between our workforce capacity and our rental capacity, and really look hard at those solutions and start to be ready to bring some cash to the table. My concern, and it may, and maybe it's just crying crocodile tears, I don't know, maybe that'd be very well founded, but you've got people in the process of making significant investments. This is a business model for people, and they're in the process of, you know, maybe they're a day away or 2 weeks away from closing a deal on a house that they made a significant investment in, counting on the ability to have a revenue model. That's their expectation. And I don't know what the appropriate window is to kind of say, at some point, you just have to pick a date, you know, you have to. But, you know, if it's, you know, most deals close in 30 days or most deals close in 45 days, you know, whether we get, I don't think you're going to see a lot of people, there's not that much inventory. I don't see us stuck up, so many people just kind of rushing all of a sudden to get in under that window. But I have the feeling that if there's someone that close to the deal, I don't know what their contingencies are and able to walk away from it, because I don't know how many moratoriums are happening around the country. But I would hate to see somebody be forced into a compromised financial situation because we just close the door on that with no warning.
Right, if we were closing the door, that would be tomorrow morning, right? We're not, we're talking about August.
It's
right?
about 30.
And, right, you know, in which case, get your stuff together and get in there.
Well, that's my ask. Is that
And,
reasonable?
yeah, and so, you know, I mean, that's a reasonable time for anybody who's, you know, in the process attempting to, you know, make this revenue generator for themselves. you know, at this point, they still have time to get in there.
I would want to see if a moratorium, if we're going to talk about a moratorium, I would want to talk about what are we going to do during the moratorium. I don't want to just shut it off for 6 months. I want to shut it off. If we're going to shut it off, it's with the direction to do something. And just to say we're going to study it, I don't think is direction enough. So
The community impact is, and the cost benefits to it. I mean, right now, it's costing us. It's, you know, it's costing us, and we still just, everybody come on in, you know, and they're making a whole lot of money. We're not getting any affordable housing out of it.
Let's just hypothetical. We pass a moratorium tonight.
Yeah.
What are we asking for? And it's a 3-month moratorium. What are we asking to happen during that 3 months?
I think that, oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, please. You
I
jump in.
didn't-
No, jump in.
I mean, I like where you're going with that, because for me, it's like, what are we solving with this moratorium? And as you said, as you said, we're full. You know, what is a long-term solution? Is it a cap of 10% of our housing stock can have STR, you know, something like that? That's like, this isn't something tangible that we can set year to year. If you get in, you get in. If you don't, you don't. Everybody has fair access to it. But slapping them, we've considered moratoriums in the past, and we've always decided, no, this is an extreme, like maybe just inside conversations, maybe not officially. But we always decided this was like not the best path forward. And I'm not personally convinced that it's the solution right now for that reason. I don't know. I get it. I want them to stop too, but I think there's a lot of ways it could backfire on us. And we really need to move to that permanent solution, that long-term solution. So maybe, I mean, and maybe there's a way to balance the objectives there, but.
I believe that we have the inability to move to a permanent solution because we're stuck in this place, right? We're stuck in this place of bandwidth for everybody, for staff, for us, for whatever. You know, and this to me seems like it would actually give us the moment to be able to step back and say, what is important here? What do we need here? We don't know. We have no clue, because like, who can look at that? You know, I mean, like that, because that's how these high level discussions kind of go. And like, so I'm just talking about making big moves and, you know, putting our foot down for a second and saying, wait a second, you know, stop the boat. I mean, this is like a military thing, you know, you're going to take over, the boat's doing 100 miles an hour. And, you know, what's the next thing you're going to do? Stop the boat. Let's see what we're going to, what we want to do, how we want to address it, what we want to get out of it in the end. But we definitely are never going to get there with just kind of plodding along and accepting things as they are. That's my take. That's my, you know, vision. I'm again, we're not getting there tonight. That's not going to happen, right? I am all for getting it on an agenda. If you guys are, let's move forward with that, and then we can discuss it further with everybody else as it gets closer.
And I have a question, Pat or Diane. Since this is an agendized item, at what point do I solicit public comment?
Your council's pleasure.
Oh, okay. Conversation's ongoing, but any comment? Any want to step up to the mic and make a public comment? Sure. Okay. All right. Just you persevered through, and I want to make sure that if you had something to say, you had an opportunity to say something. Turning to council discussion. Good question.
Anybody with raised hands?
Anybody online who wants to take an opportunity to make a public comment on this topic? Now's the time. Raise your hand. Okay. We'll keep an eye on it, but not seeing any right now, right? So if we want to stay focused on this in terms of creating some direction for Diane and Thad for next meeting, to prepare the emergency ordinance, so it's available if that's council's.
But for it to be available, we need to be placed on the agenda as something that is going to be considered, right? So if you want to workshop it, that's great. I can bring you ordinance to workshop. But if you want to be able to consider it and act on it that night, you're going to have to put it on the agenda as consideration and possible action on moratorium, prohibiting issuance of short-term rental licenses.
I feel like it's premature to put that on an agenda without basically half of our council. I mean, they
Oh, okay.
very well might agree to move forward, but I think that it's not fully baked yet. I
Okay.
mean, I also would like more information from staff. Who's done a moratorium? How's it been going? I mean, I know Steamboat did one. But, we need to understand how this could play out. I think there's, as you pointed, I mean, there's all sorts of repercussions that we don't know. It could be the best idea ever.
Sure.
For sure. But it affects a lot of people.
So how do you want to, I don't know what our work session agenda looks like for the next two meetings, so I don't.
I will say June 27th is full because of the BOCC or work session with the BOCC on Lake Hill.
I was going to make a suggestion relative to that, and I've spoken with Diane. Does it really make sense to talk with the county on the 27th, given that we have a manager coming in who needs to establish that relationship and engage in those negotiations, get to know those players and understand the interaction of these two bodies? It just doesn't, with due respect, doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
That was on my mind for our conversation tonight.
So does that mean we're not going to do the BOCC work session? Is that what you're suggesting? Move it later. Right.
Which will be a week after Tony gets here. Right.
And I wasn't by commenting on it, it raised the issue of talking about something else on work session. You can.
I agree with that.
So would you prepare that ordinance then for if we make this a work session agenda item, and we could have that ordinance on hand to discuss at the next meeting?
Sure. There's nothing to the ordinance other than you telling me that you want it, and either it's effective the second it's adopted or it's effective some period later. So again, I don't know if it's perhaps
A legal question.
yes, it's a policy question that the ordinance is going to say the same thing. If you say yes, right, we're just going to shut it down. We're going to state the emergency, and it's either going to be shut down immediately or it's going to be shut down henceforth at a date certain.
It usually gets set not with council direction, meaning it's done through mayor, town manager.
And the manager.
So over the course of the next week and a half, there can be a discussion with the mayor and decide if we want to put it on the
And my only point is, I'm happy to have it on the work session. I'm just not sure it's the wisest to go ahead and prepare it as a written document as opposed to having the works discussing it, because I don't think there's anything on the paper that really is going to be discussed. It's the issues you're discussing. Other than when does this start?
Okay. Can I ask one other question while we've got you in the hot seat? Alpine Inn. Has anything happened since, because that is something that is positive, that's happened or is happening. Kind of the who's controlling the rooms. They're creating a first model for this product. What's going on?
Yes, as of the date of the staff report, if you've heard anything else since then, Summit County is working with a local property manager to get that into place. And in the meantime, they are taking reservations for a wait list essentially by emailing to housing department at summitcountyco.gov. So if you're interested in one of the rooms at the Alpine Inn, I would definitely reach out to that email address. And again, that's housing department at summitcountyco.gov if anybody's listening.
So we as Frisco That's a county thing, right? We,
County thing.
at one point, I thought there was a conversation that we might control some of the rooms or get some of the rooms.
I think that had been a conversation or a consideration, but it never went beyond the conversation phase. And do you have anything more on that?
That's the latest update I have from Jason Deeds. So they're still trying to find a property manager. They're still trying to determine rental rates, and maybe there's like a sliding scale or something like that. And then they're also trying to figure out how payments can be made from those occupants. So some logistics still. I've had several people interested. I'm kind of sending them to that same email list and hoping we get more information soon because folks are looking for housing.
And do we have interest?
I think we have interest in being part of that.
Yeah, I feel like
Personally,
we said that at our last meeting.
yes, I think we did. I think we all, or most of us did.
Is that a conversation you have with Jason to see?
I believe our interim town manager, Jeff Durbin, had those conversations with Scott Vargo at some point over the past few weeks. I have not heard a result, other than my understanding from Jeff was that the county just said, we're doing this and we can figure it out later. But that's, again, I don't have too much other information other than just anecdotal.
Yeah, I feel like it would be super worthwhile just to circle back with the county, just to say we're interested in securing a portion of those for town of Frisco, or not necessarily the town's employees, but people that work in the town of Frisco.
Sure, yeah.
I don't know.
Because we could, as we just discussed, then we could start our own wait list.
Yeah.
And then, there's something, there's some capacity, there's something.
How can we help? How can we be a part of it?
We'll certainly reach out to the county housing department since they have that lease. So they've got it right now. So we'll certainly circle back and see what we can do to help move that along.
All right. Anything else on this agenda item? I think you guys feel like we're not doing something that we need to be doing that's not on the list. I mean, to move this needle, housing. Can we come away saying that we're doing something other than putting our work on you?
Yeah, I think we are making progress. There's been a lot of great conversations, and frankly, that's some of the starting point sometimes is just what's on people's mind. What are you hearing in the community about, whether it's about STRs, whether it's about ideas on housing, whatever it may be. I will say, you don't need to wait for this forum necessarily. If you hear from somebody or have an idea, please reach out to Eve or I, shoot us an email and say, hey, this came up. We're just getting this, compiling a list and gathering it all in and coming up with ideas. Again, I don't know, no details certainly on the housing helps application, but we are getting some interest on that because council recently took action to amend that program. So we are making some progress, and just unfortunately things take time sometimes, and moving at the pace of government, but we'll keep on rolling as best we can. So.
Used to the pace of government. Sorry. Thank you.
David Rowland, 123 Rose Crown Circle. I would suggest that maybe you start soliciting businesses to give input around workforce shortages, because I've heard it anecdotally, and that will give you data of businesses who obviously employ the workforce and are having difficulty with that, so that when you get to a decision-making point, it isn't let's go solicit now and wait 6 weeks for businesses to get back. You can ask the question now. That was the only other suggestion I had. Thank you.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because one thing that I know we've just sort of touched on in the last couple of months, but like we're having this housing forum next week. Some of us may be able to attend, maybe not. We'll see who is actually at that meeting. Definitely leaders in the county. But we haven't heard enough from the business community, yet we hear a lot from the business community, not at these meetings. And I think that how can we be better partners? How can, we help create solutions with them? So, it's hard to get people to show up and be a part of this forum, but I would love to explore more ideas as to how we can bring businesses into this conversation, because we can't solve this alone. we need to solve it with businesses in many cases. I don't think it's viewed as kind of a partnership right now. I think it's viewed as, okay, the town solve it, you know, and I think that it's so much more complex than that. We don't have access to all of the tools. And so thank you for bringing that up.
And anecdotally, I mean, I think we're all spending time out on Main Street, and we're not going to see business owners coming to these meetings because they're so short-staffed. They're working. They're going to be working on Wednesday during that housing initiative forum. They're working during council meeting tonight. When you're out on the weekend, you see them working, and we interact with them. So as you see them and know them, please, again, just ask them and pass that along to us. That might help us out as well.
Well, I lived it for 25 years, so I know exactly the answer. I know exactly what the answer is to that particular question in terms of capacity. But in my world, it's landing pad units. You know, I had a conversation just the other day with somebody who, you know, a former business owner has a small place in Florida. He comes back a couple times a year, and he brought it up. He said, I have capacity 1 to 3 months at a time, a couple times a year. And, you know, I don't really want to short term it. My house, you know, my building's full of short termers. And, you know, so that opportunity for the Housing Helps 3.0, I think is real. And which is that whole idea of, you know, connecting that capacity, landing pad units. So businesses who have talent that appears, they've got someplace they can at least get a toehold, you know, 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, something like that. So, and that's, you know, anything. Okay, thank you, Don and Eva. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And next thing I have on the agenda is executive session. Is that the executive session? All right. Yes. Is there a motion to enter into executive session, please?
I move that we approve agenda item number 5, an executive session pursuant to CRS 246402 parentheses 4E, determining positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, developing strategy for negotiations, and instructing negotiators concerning the development of Lake Hill.
The motion to go into executive session has been moved by Andrew Aronson, seconded by Councilmember Sherburne. Can we call the vote on that, please?
Certainly. Held.
Yes.
Incan absent, Sherburne. Mortensen absent, Aronson.
Yes.
Burley absent, Fallon.
Yes.
Thank you, and we will be switching over to a different Zoom meeting for those who are participating remotely.
Okay. Thank you very much. I don't hear. Surprise, surprise.
Does that mean a 5-minute break, please?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Six. One to put my shoes on.
Stop this meeting.